Rushmore Show, where it's all about your top four and nothing more. Andy, we're here. I almost didn't make it. And it is time for another Rushmore Show. Where are all my friends at? As you guys start logging in, you start coming in, telling us where you're from, where you're at, who you are, where you're watching us from, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, all the Instagrams, whatever. How'd you find us and hook us up with that knowledge? Andy, yo, man, this is going to be a fun one. You're a 90s guy.
Yes.
I see you are ready for a concert. Yes.
I had to rock the flannel today.
The flannel pajamas, right? Let me scoot this over. Yeah, flannel pajamas. Let's look.
Nice.
Gosh, 90s nostalgia. Now, a couple people have asked to do 80s nostalgia. Wasn't so sure how much 80s nostalgia you would have since you were not alive.
I remember having bottles back then.
Yeah.
I think that's color.
You know, we've had a couple people. So let me first do this. We have somebody in the chat. Welcome to the chat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As you guys log in, I'll say this very first thing is, hey, Fat Boy Gaming in the house. What's up, Ellie? Here's the deal. We were supposed to have Feral Inferno on here. So if you saw some of the stuff that was going on, Feral is supposed to have been on tomorrow. And Andy, you know, the nature of us being in ministry and having families, things come up. And just like next week, both this week and next week had to move to a Thursday. Feral wasn't able to make the jump and the switch. Hopefully we'll be able to get him back in the spring for video games. But we were able to pick up another great host, the guy that we've been waiting to get on because of the connections of his show and the connections just being on here. He's been a fan of ours in the comments and in the kind of lurking around for a while. So 90s nostalgia. We're going to talk 90s trends, 90s fads. We're going to talk all the 6 categories that we do, whether it's music, movies and TV, sports, obviously nostalgia, but video games and food. And so, or did I say food twice? Maybe I did that, but you know what I mean. We're going to talk a little bit about that and what that looks like in the 90s. And man, 90s. So Andy, you're born 89. I'm born 78. So I was high school for the better part of the beginning of the 90s. And I was like military the better part of the end of the 90s. So my perspective might be a little different. Our guest perspective might be a little different. And your perspective is obviously a little younger. So this is more of like your 80s to me. How are you feeling about this list?
I absolutely love this list. Here's the thing. If I had to pick, as much as I love music, you know, when we do music, the 2 months of music, that's like my bread and butter. As far as like, you remember the video game show, like, was it like Stump the Nerd or what was that? What was that show? Anyway, if that was my thing, like that would be where I was at. But I think I enjoy nostalgia better because of what you just said. It covers music. It covers food. It covers video games. It covers sports. Everything that we talk about. This is my favorite one because it's our cheat month, right? We can just talk about whatever, and it works. The last 2 weeks we went over wrestling, right? We could have put that in sports, but we put it in nostalgia.
Yeah, it surely is our cheat month, and we will probably snatch wrestling in sports. Speaking of that, we are booking sports right now. We have Chris Gordy coming on. Chris Gordy is a guy that is a Houston sportscaster. I worked with him at the video store, and then also we're going to have Who Dat Pat, and we are going to have Zach's Collectibles and sometimes gardening. I guess we'll have him as well. Maybe Boggs, maybe a few other people. But man, our lineup has kind of shifted over the last couple of days. One thing I do want to say is this week we have a new guest that has not really been announced. Next week we have Bayou Geek Collectibles on Thursday. And then the next week it is a fun extra show. It's happening on Monday. And we're going to have Dan from Spine Ticks on. And Spine Ticks is not able to make it, Sith. And we are going to have Dan on in his replacement. And that's going to be extra cool. Now, with that being said, we've already got everything starting to book. If you want to be on the show, you want to be a part of this thing, hit us up in the Instagram. That's the best way to find us. And or Facebook. We're on both. Right now, we're live actually at Facebook and Twitch. So if you're hanging out over there, say hello. Come on over to the YouTube side, give us a like, share, and let's get this thing going. Andy, 90s nostalgia, Rushmore. It's time to get it going. I think so. Here it is. 90s nostalgia. As you guys come on in, hello, Kenneth. Picking Preacher in the house. The other, the better half or the other half of the crew. Barry in the house, Mr. Mayonnaise and Vanilla Wafers. Fat Boy Gaming down from Houston. Love it, love it, love it. Welcome to the show. Hang out with us. Tell me all your 90s things, whether it's in any category. That's what we're doing tonight. So this one is very broad. So it's going to be interesting to see where we go. With that being said, it's time to announce our guest. So a couple months ago, we happened to meet Picking Preacher, who's in the comments, over at Louisiana RetroCon. We'll catch up on Louisiana RetroCon in a minute. I'm sure Davey will pop in sooner than later. And as we talk about the RetroCon, we ran into the Picking Preacher. I kind of look up all the booths and try to figure out if we know them, if we've seen them, if they're YouTubers or whatever. And he was, and we went over there and just tried to figure out if we could, hang out, do a short, maybe get him on the show. Kind of starstruck, to be honest. And it's funny because he'll probably say the same thing. It's weird how when you're in YouTube that everybody is kind of a celebrity, Andy, and it's kind of like I've seen you on before, and he ended up joining us as watching the Picking Preacher. He's had a live show going unless he's in Thailand or whatever, pretty much every Monday night. Had great guests. Many of his guests have been our guests, different video game guys, and many of them are going to be guests in the video game week. But he has a guest host, a guy that kind of sits in the back and gives a little funny commentary. And we've been egging him on to start his own YouTube. But we're going to welcome to the show Picking Preacher's Robin, I guess, if you will, to that Batman. We're going to bring on Steven, who is that flipper dude. Now,
what is up?
Flipper dude. Oh, look, that flipper dude is black.
He's completely black.
Yeah.
It's so mysterious.
So mysterious. What is happening?
I got no video. This is the beauty of live TV.
He is there. I see him. So let's go. And we hear him. We hear him. Now it's funny because he was just on the video right before we went live. So, Steve, why don't you log out and maybe log back in, see if that'll help, and then we'll get this thing kind of going, right? And so,
all right.
See if that'll help, maybe. So Steve is I'll help you guys out. So Steve's on Picking Preacher, kind of doing his guest hosting, and he is a reseller. He has an eBay store and all that kind of stuff, and he's kind of selling things online, which kind of connected him with Picking Preacher, because Picking Preacher, that's where the picking comes from, not his nose, but he's picking toys and things and games out and about. Speaking of Feral Inferno, there he is. And Feral Inferno was hopefully going to be the guy on our show, but we weren't able to make it happen. And hopefully we'll be able to have Feral on another time. There he is. And Steve is here. So Steve, tell all of our 4 fans that are hanging out with us currently, what exactly is that flipper dude?
That flipper dude is a dad of 3 beautiful girls and a beautiful wife, and I'm a reseller on the side. I work at NASA. That's how I met Keith in the first place, that Picking Preacher. Met him through reselling and whatever, and we been doing the live with him ever since.
Nice.
Yeah. and I'm glad you brought some color commentary to the show because Pick and Preacher needs some help. So
Come on, Keith.
I'm just playing. That's my dude. That's it.
So
I'm
he
an
says this-
astronaut, he says.
Look, Keith says this. I'm an astronaut. When you said that, you said I work at NASA, and then you said that's how I met. That I was like, wait a minute, is he a scientist? Is he an astronaut?
And you know what he also said? He said I'm a dad of beautiful girls and a wife, and I was like, you're a dad of a wife.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, that's awesome. I always knew there was something wrong with Keith. I think you found him in space.
So, not to go deep down into your business, but Steve, I have a friend that also worked at NASA, and he was a bona fide rocket scientist. And a couple years ago, he handed me a. If we ever do 70s nostalgia, it will probably be there. But he handed me a 1978 Chevy Blazer keys and said, "Her name's Baby. If you keep her name Baby, you can have her."
What?
So I expect something really nice for you being on the show. You know, you work at NASA. I mean, you guys got all that kind of stuff. What's happening, Kevin, in the house?
Yeah,
you heard the same thing about being the dad of the beautiful wife. Pick and Preacher says, "Butt Files." Hey, bud, welcome to the show. Now look, Pick and Preacher. Yeah, sorry, Steve, Flipper dude.
Yep.
What do you know about the 90s, man?
Man, the 90s were pretty big for me, man. I mean, the 80s were huge for me, obviously.
Right, 80s is my jam as well. Well, 80s is more of my kid jam. This is more of my high school jam. And college jam kind of towards the end. So it depends on like what era you're kind of like looking at, right? So
yeah.
I love the 90s.
My biggest music time was in the 90s as far as playing music. So
that's right. So Steve has been kind of like really like itching to get on a music one, Andy. And so we have music coming up. Music's always in March and April, and we'll have Steve come back on. But so Steve, were you in a band as well, just like Andy and also Keith?
Yeah. I came from the hair band era. I don't know if y'all I don't know if y'all seen my other logo, but my other logo is a picture of me when I was in that era.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of logos, I hooked you up with a logo because you didn't have one. And I thought that we got that in time and we were able to put a short out, and that short is going right now. So if you guys got a chance to go check that out, it kind of dropped about an hour ago. But let's get this show going, man.
Yep.
So 90s. How old are you, Steve?
I'm 54.
So so you're like 10 ahead of me. And I'm 10 ahead of him. So this is gonna be great because you're in the college area of time probably for this. So
I was married with kids already in the 90s.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So like a young adult is what I mean. So let's do this. So you've seen the show before. Everybody that's in there, hey man, this is how we're gonna do it. Follow along with us. Give us your 90s nostalgia. If this is the first time you're kind of hanging out with us, welcome to the Summit Squad. But listen, you're welcome to throw things out as we go. But we do it in the format of 4, 3, 2, 1. If you want to follow 4, 3, 2, 1, that's perfect. We're going to have some honorable mentions later. If you got to go and you got to throw your whole list in or whatever, by all means.
Kirk, can I interrupt real quick?
Yeah.
I had an idea on the spot, and you can totally shoot me down. So chat, if you get shot down, this is a fun idea. It's all Kirk's fault, okay? So no pressure. But it's been a minute since we've done a giveaway. And I thought 90s nostalgia, how cool would it be to give away a Lloyd Christmas getting a haircut Funko Pop from Dumb and Dumber? I mean, come on, 90s, right? So what do we want to do? If you hashtag Andy
90s nostalgia.
Andy once had hair. You
lots of hair.
Andy used to have hair, something like that. No. Put hashtag 90s rule or something like that. Yeah, let's do hashtag 90s rule, and we'll pick a random person. We're not reselling. I know that's what you guys do. We're just giving it away. This was given to us anyway. So anyway, Barry,
come into a theater near you. And Dumber.
Do hashtag 90s rule. We'll put up a banner here in just a minute, just to remind you guys, and we'll remind you throughout the time. And we'll pick a random person to give this away to. Anyway,
look at Kevin's hashtag.
Kevin used to have hair too. We all used to have hair.
Kevin's been on the show before. Barry, you gonna come on the show, man? We need to connect. I need to connect with you. If you want to come on the show, we'd love to have you on the show. You're such a big part of this thing now. We'd love to get you back. And Keith, I think we would have you back again coming January and February. We got a huge lineup coming. Mort's coming. RNG, Retro Rob, Manny, Saturn Steve. So many people are coming to join us in January and February. So we'd love to have you back. I think Retro Cardigan, maybe even Rad Bash and all those guys. So, and hopefully Farrell, who is supposed to be on the show today. So let's get this thing started. We're going to start with our criteria. Now, criteria, all our friends out there, is basically why would you pick these particular things, just so that we can address the elephant in the room, which this is not necessarily the GOAT, but it is our GOAT, right? Is our top four. So you're first, Steve. What were you thinking when you were kind of putting your list together? I know, and also thank you for jumping in almost last minute, like 2-3 weeks ago, and we've been just kind of really even chatting about it. We usually have a lot more time to chat. Yeah. So tell me, what were you thinking?
My criteria definitely, it was because we talked about the fact that the 90s being a really broad subject. I decided that I didn't want to focus on one area too much. I wanted to spread it out amongst those subgenres or whatever you want to call it throughout the 90s. So I decided to spread it out and come up with something in each individual category.
That's kind of how I'm doing it. So you're kind of going into the criteria that I was kind of thinking of. We're a top four show of 6 categories, which we never really talk about it being a 6 category thing until we're there. And I was like, one of the categories we're obviously doing, which is nostalgia. So if I can figure out how to get the other 5 categories tonight, being in a 90s world, I'm going to attempt. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, because it really has to do with the honorable mentions and what you guys do. So we're going to start. What is your Rosie? Now, for all 50 of you in the chat, Rosie is what you're kind of like building the mountain with. We're going to go up the mountain. Nobody else makes the mountain. And usually, if I'm being honest, I usually have 1 and 2 in the bag. I can kind of figure out number 1 for sure. Number 2 is kind of like, it takes a little bit of thinking. Number 4 takes a long press, because you're like, well, what about this one at 5 and 6? I could probably bump that up. And if you had any of those feelings, you are a regular on the show. And so what is your Rosie? Where's your line in the sand?
Well, the where I was going to I came up with the list pretty quick, but where I was going to place them on the list was the hard part. As far as importance to me. So I would definitely have to say that my Rosie is what I consider to be the funniest sitcom in television history, and that would be Friends.
Now, Andy is not a Friends fan.
I know.
and I am not. So it's kind of like our show. We're not a Christian podcast, but we're not a Christian podcast.
Right.
I'm not a Friends fan, but I'm not a Friends fan.
Exactly.
I just never watched the show. At the time this thing was going, I was kind of in high school, and Friends to me was kind of like a different type of person. I think I probably would have watched it if I was probably either of your ages. I think right where I landed, I just didn't want to watch Friends in my high school years, because it just wasn't the cool thing to kind of do.
Well, I didn't really start watching it until the monkey left. That's when I got into it. But I was still in the 90s though. So
Andy, what do you now? I've talked to many Friends fans, and I don't have to find them because they let you know who they are. let me just, before I tell you my knock on Friends, what is it that draws you to Friends? Because I'm interested, because I hear this from multiple people.
I personally think the writing is really, really good.
Okay.
I think the humor, I mean, Joey and Chandler as a team is a couple of the funniest guys ever on television.
Okay.
Which R.I.P.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
That's a
Tragic
whole
ending, like 2-3 months ago. I mean, it's probably longer than that now.
Yeah.
But it feels like it was just a few. Matthew Perry,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They just arrested somebody today, I think, about that whole thing, saying that it was
Really?
foul play. Yeah.
Wow.
Really? So they found him, I think, in a hot
deal.
tub, right? But then it came out that narcotics was involved and he relapsed.
Yeah.
So, man,
he
that's
drowned.
a deal.
Hey, Blocky Kids in the house, Blocky Kid, if you type in hashtag 90s rule, you can be entered for a chance to win this Lloyd Christmas getting a haircut.
Hey, and maybe we'll bring, if they win, maybe we'll bring it to Louisiana RetroCon and trade for the Wii that I won like 4 months ago.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Just playing.
Let me just give you my beef on Friends real quick. First of all, as a whole, I don't enjoy shows with a laugh track. I can't get into it. So there's something weird about now if it's a live studio audience and they're laughing, you can tell the difference.
Yeah.
When it's a recorded laugh, it almost is like, what? No, I don't know. Like, it's just maybe it's like this ADD thing to me, like where it's like I stop focusing on the show. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you forgot about it again.
You don't have to do that. Hey, Pick and Preacher, just bring it to Louisiana RetroCon.
Yeah,
we'll be there in like 3 weeks.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's part of that. Part of it too is I think. So I was born in '89, so I'm not watching Friends while it's out, right?
Right.
I'm certainly there in the '90s, but I'm not watching Friends. And I before watching Friends, I watched The Office and I watched Parks and Recreation, and that really what that did is formed a habit in my life to where that's all I do. I continue to watch those two things, and I try to go back and I watch Friends, and I've tried to watch episodes, and I don't know, like there's something that doesn't click with me. Maybe it's a laugh track, maybe it's just it's a different lane from some of these shows that I'm really into. But again, I'm not hating on people who love Friends, because listen, I think, like, if you find that show, I totally get it. I understand it, you know.
I think like Seinfeld was hilarious, but I never watched it. I didn't ever compete.
Yeah, so I'll throw in. I never watched Friends. I only watched Seinfeld when it was syndicated late at night and there was nothing else on.
Yeah.
Didn't follow either one of those shows too much, but I do, when I have watched them, I do like them. But I have watched Friends so little that I didn't even realize that was one of the laugh track shows that you don't like, Andy, because you always talk about laugh tracks. And I don't necessarily know all the ones that have laugh tracks, because I never really watched sitcoms. I stopped kind of watching sitcoms, and we talked about this in the comedy show, not because I don't love them. It's just something that never like brought me back. Except for like the Goldbergs, and I love the Goldbergs, and that's my jam because it's all 80s, and that's it's like reliving my life sometimes.
Yeah.
But with a good sitcom, we've got a long list of 90s sitcoms that might actually make our show tonight. So yeah, I did trade them for rom-coms. You can actually watch that in episode 7. Episode 7, we talked about rom-coms. And I remember that because it was the first time we had guests on, and it was our wives. It was for Valentine's Day. So I remember doing the thumbnail. So it's a really cool thumbnail. Yeah. With that being said, man, good pick, good start. So you went TV first. I'll go with my criteria. So you kind of stole it, not necessarily stole it, but kind of stole the general direction that I'm thinking. I got a long list. Me and my wife, actually, my wife very rarely jumps into the hey, let's talk about what your Rushmore is. And I happened to bring it up, and she was like, whoa, what are you thinking on that? And so we got to talking, and man, we spent probably 30 minutes just bouncing things back and forth, which that's fun. I love doing that. And my list is huge. There's so many things, so in order to kind of bring it back, and of course maybe cheat a little bit here or there, I had to figure out a criteria, and I said we've got the 6 things. And so my very first one for the night is going to be, and this is trouble because I really don't want to take this one, but I have to because it's the most 90s, most important, most nostalgic thing for me are these 4 things. And there's some other ones that are just really good for other 90s people when I was in high school, my friends, my sisters, whatever. But this is me. This is definitely me. And so number 4, we're not veering too far off of where we were the last 2 weeks. 1996, 95, even in 97 and 98 a little bit, but more so 94, 95, 96. We spent the majority of our Monday nights with 2 televisions watching the Monday night wrestling wars between WWF, or now WWE, and WCW. And listen, the most 90s thing that I could possibly think of is going back and pulling out a VHS, which I've got a few, and watching some old WCW matches, because man, it transports me right to my friend Brad's house, right to my nephew Kyle's house, right to my house, right to Rudy's house, right? And we would bounce around, and like there would probably be 40 of us. I mean, at one time in people's house, we would get the chips and the dip, and we'd set 2 TVs up right next to each other and do a crazy Monday night. And then when the pay-per-views came, we tried to get all of them in those same 30, 20, 30, 40. A lot of times it was just like 20 of us and a couple of our girlfriends that really didn't want to watch. They would all chip in like $5, $10, $15, and we would get all the pay-per-views. So for several years in a row, we didn't miss a single show. It is the most 90s thing I could possibly think of in our high school time. And so, yeah, I'm going to go the Monday Night Wars between WWE and WCW.
So we obviously know how we feel about this because we have talked about this ad nauseum, which is a fun little saying. But we have for sure talked about the Monday Night Wars. We've talked about wrestling in the 90s. You know, that was the prime time for me. I always talk about an Attitude Era, which again extended into the 2000s, and I understand that, but saw its beginning in the late 90s there. So I love this pick. I was always for sure a WCW. Honestly, though, like Nitro, Thunder, like that kind of stuff. That like I was all into that. Having the Goldbergs, having the
I couldn't love WCW more. I don't think. I mean, I literally I love every single person. Like,
yeah.
I mean, even like Disco Inferno and like just weird people that would come out. I mean, every time they brought a new guy out, I was like, yeah, and he was stupid, right? Yeah, there you go. DX. Now, listen, DX absolutely rules. I am not on either side, Bayou Geek, but you did give me my NWO up here, and I need to get a DX from you. That's what I need to do.
I have. So let me know. So I'm sure it's out there for sure. I have Triple H and Shawn Michaels, but I need Road Dogg. I need Billy Gunn, and I need.
You got to explain, Andy. You got to explain. Bayou Geek is our guy next week, and he is literally our Funko Pop dealer.
He's a Funko Pop guy.
Right?
It's the only booth I've
probably in the 90s. If I'd have said he's the Funko Pop dealer, we'd get arrested. But you know, he's our Funko Pop dealer. So, bro, we got some picks. We got some things we're looking at. Yeah.
He gave us a Master P Funko Pop each.
Oh, dude.
The last one, which is amazing.
Which is so 90s.
It's especially if you're from New Orleans. I mean, like this is like
so 90s.
Hey,
look at this. Maybe I'm saying, gold teeth and all.
He is prominently displayed in my office of the church, which is super fun. But anyway, yeah. So this is great. I know we keep going way off topic, but I love this. I love this talk here. But yeah. So this is a great pick.
Andy,
I have mine's
My
open.
geek wants me to open it.
How about I'll do you one better. I will just take a picture of it tomorrow and I'll let you know what's in the
Oh yeah,
back.
because yours is open.
Mine's open. Yeah, I opened them. They got to freedom things.
Mine stay in jail. His don't.
Yeah, exactly. So, Steven, how you feel about 90s wrestling, Monday Night Wars, things like that?
Man, I was more of an 80s wrestling guy.
Yeah.
I'd kind of gone beyond it. I'm still a fan and I loved watching it. What was the show that came out on MTV where they were vying for a contract?
Tough Enough.
Tough Enough.
That's it.
Yeah, I totally loved that show, man. I think that's a little bit later, but it very cool. So I was still a fan. It's definitely I'm a fan of the sport for sure.
Yeah.
So you bring something up. MTV, it's probably early 2000s. Vampiro had a show on there, and Vampiro was like teaching wrestlers how to be luchadors and stuff. And it was like the most extreme wrestling. It had like trampolines and all kinds of crazy stuff. It's a hard show to find, but it was crazy. And it was on MTV too.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I don't remember when that show came out.
That's the other one on MTV, Celebrity Deathmatch.
Celebrity Deathmatch.
So, fun fact, I used the Celebrity Deathmatch graphic on the very first Rushmore that me and Andy did about Christmas movies.
Yeah.
So that was my first time ever, like, trying to steal somebody's stuff. What Celebrity Deathmatch?
Yeah. All right, man. Great pick. I love that.
Andy.
Yes.
So, two good picks, man. Friends, Monday Night Wars. We're in the TV area. TV. Oh, by the way, that's kind of where I was going with that. Not necessarily the sports side, but more of the TV side, watching it. What's your criteria and where you go?
So I had a fun one. This is one of those topics that's just, like you said, you talked to your wife about it. This is another one that I talked to my wife, honestly, for a long time about this. And it's a great just conversation starter, and it kind of brings you down a rabbit hole of figuring out all these. Oh my gosh, that's 90s too. Oh my gosh, I'm just so nostalgic for that too. All of these different things. And when I thought about it, I said two kind of things came to my mind. Number one, if I were to somehow have a time capsule in the 90s that I couldn't open for 50 years, and I could fit 4 things in there. Now, some of these things are not things that'll make sense in a minute, but maybe they wouldn't fit necessarily in that. But what does he say? Wrestle Society X was there. You go. But here's the thing. That's one of them, time capsule. The other thing is that, like, let's say this alien life form that Keith knows because he's an astronaut came down and said, I'm going to destroy the Earth unless you give me a perfect picture of the 90s in 4 things, which would be the weirdest hypothetical situation. But if that were to happen, I am prepared now, because that's kind of my thought process. These 4 things encapsulate the 90s. So they're pretty broad, but when I think about it, like, if I can be transported back and have these 4 things, I know I'm in the 90s for sure, without a doubt. I mean, these things are almost exclusive to the 90s. They've seen anyway. It'll make sense in a minute. So with that said, I don't know if any of that makes sense to you. I just had so much fun thinking about this. So my Rosie, my line in the sand, and it's very weird. I think we kind of talked in a pre-chat about, like, some of these things might be a little weird. Like, this isn't a single thing you can kind of narrow this down to. This is more of an aura of something about the 90s. And my Rosie, I kicked off a heavy hitter to put this one in there because I feel like if you show me this picture, I know exactly what year. I can narrow it down to the year. I'm going to say, as a whole, 90s fast food decor is my Rosie. And if you now specifically when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about those teals and those purples and oranges at Taco Bell. Man, I'm thinking about Wendy's and the yellow and like the weird like atrium that you used to be able to eat in those things. Like, what was that about? Like, it was a whole experience. There was foliage everywhere. Like, there was fake plants in these places. And now when you go into these, and maybe it's just this nostalgia that I'm longing for, you don't have that feeling. It feels so modern, which, I mean, again, I understand, you can't go with the times, but I have seen, and I don't know exact locations, but there are certain locations in the US that have saved this 90s decor that people go and film, and it's just amazing to see. But I'm thinking the geometric shapes, the bright colors, the weird furniture. Remember that like sectional area of Taco Bell? It was like a booth, but it was like angled and geometric. It was so weird. Anyway, that's what I think when I think 90s, man. Growing up, going to get food at McDonald's and it being like this kid place. That also includes seeing the BK Club, right? Seeing Grimace and Hamburglar, seeing the Chihuahua at Taco Bell. All of these things just in a giant bubble. I think of, and oh man, Bayou Geek said it, Pizza Hut. You go into that place and then have the buffet, but then you have like those stained glass like lighting fixtures right above your table and the red cups. I mean, there's just like, we could talk a whole show about that kind of stuff, but this, I'm going to say, if it makes sense, 90s food decor, fast food decor would be my Rosie.
Hey, I guess Retro Rob was here and gone, but just want to say hello to him real quick if he's still out there. Retro Rob is also one of the fellas that's coming to hang out with us in January and February. So, man, thank you for showing up, Retro Rob, and being there. Dude, let's talk about this decor. I mean, that one design that's like white with the teal and the purple stripe that was like a Taco Bell, but they make clothes out of it now, and it was on like napkins and things. Dude, the decor is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. How about just like going into a McDonald's playground? Like that kind of thing. Like all that decor even like pops in my head when I think about fast food. Like you have the like who actually got in that thing? Like, I mean, I know I tried to as a kid, but I think I felt claustrophobic. But it was like it was like a policeman, and it was like a burger, and you climbed up, and you were like in jail in his teeth, like weird stuff.
Terrifying.
90s decor was interesting, and Taco Bell and Pizza Hut to me are the ones that pop in my mind immediately. I mean,
I think of Wendy's. I think Wendy's is another one to me that just jumps out because of the yellow cups, which I think they may still do. It's red cups now, isn't it? But like the whole yellow sleeve with the fries, the plants in the building, all that kind of stuff.
So Retro Rob, thanks for staying. I see Keith had to roll out. So thanks for being here, Keith, and we'll see you soon. But yeah, absolutely. That's a good pick. Now, I'm going to be honest. When I was putting my list together, that's a great one because it's something I didn't think of because I was kind of like staying in those 6 categories. That one's kind of outside the category, if you will. And that's pretty cool. So
love the
raid. Welcome, Retro Rewind Pod. Raiding over, coming hanging out. Thank you for that. PaulJPowers.com.
Well, Powers is in here too.
Hey,
all right, everybody, we gotta get back to
here you go. We're gonna have to drop a Retro Rewind podcast at halftime.
Let's do that.
Joining us for sure. That'll be the commercial of the day. Hang out with us, and you guys go follow Retro Rewind Pod and PaulJPowers.com. Hand out some wrenches.
This is a brief little thing I'll talk about right here. 90s Saints or 90s Kiss? Who is better? 90s Kiss was far better in the 90s.
90s,
I actually liked 90s Kiss, believe it or not. They put out an album, which is one of the more underrated albums, called Carnival of Souls in 1997, and it was their attempt at like being Soundgarden. If you haven't heard it, interestingly enough, Interestingly enough, I picked it up at a Winn-Dixie grocery store in like a $1.50 CD bin. That's where it wound up, but it is super worth your time listening to. But yeah, 90s Kiss was far better. I think the 90s Saints were still there were some moments of things, but there was a lot of ain'ts still kind of happening in that. We had our, we had that kind. Anyway, 2000 Saints, we started getting a little bit where we need.
A little better, Drew Brees era, right? So, all right, let's move on. So that's some good starts. Where are we at for your link now, Steven?
TJ,
you don't have to. I'm sorry, our TJ Jazzy Jeff. You don't have to give us your criteria now. So our number 3 is TJ Jazzy Jeff. For all our new friends, it's not linked. That's 2. It's our fun name for Thomas Jefferson. So where are you going with 2 there, Steve?
Well, oddly enough, my number 2, my TJ Jazzy Jeff, was again one of my favorites of all time. So it is a little specific again, but I had to go with Sir William Wallace and Braveheart.
Wow, nice. All right, you're back on track. I'm cool with you now.
so Braveheart, to me, it is at the top of my list of movies all time.
Nice.
Yeah. It was Star Wars: A New Hope for a really, really long time, but Braveheart really hit home for me, and I love it. Absolutely love it.
This is one of those man movies. To be a man, you have to appreciate Braveheart for sure. Yeah. Sir William Wallace. That is a great pick, dude.
So you went movies, you went TV, you're hanging out in that area. I love that. Movies. I love Braveheart. This is like Braveheart is a great 90s movie. It does signify that. If I was going to go movies, I have a couple more that I would actually throw out there thinking about that are kind of more in that like immediate high school time, what I'm watching.
Mm-hmm.
But I love this movie. I mean, it's quotable. It's like one of those great epic war movies. And Andy, actually, I think you had this as your Benjamin, didn't you? Didn't you have this as a Benjamin as on your war movies? Maybe.
Yeah, I think I did. I think it's when I finally started mentioning actual war movies.
Yeah, Braveheart's a great pick, man. Great pick. Shout out to Dave Thomas. That's hilarious.
Hey, real quick, Barry. The Saints used to have a tight end named Dave Thomas, and I used to call him Double Stack. So there you go.
Yeah,
Dave Thomas was a tight end for the Saints for a short period of time.
So Braveheart, man. Andy, I know you've got a quote dug in there.
Well, I mean, you could take my land. Never take my freedom. That is.
I knew it because you've said it many times.
Yeah, when I think of scenes of movie, like that would be a fun Rushmore in a movie month, like individual scene, moment, dialogue. This in a movie, not movie as a whole. But because I don't think Braveheart's going to make my top 4 movies of all time. I totally don't. I mean, I totally agree with it making yours if that's what you want, but. If I'm thinking scenes, that might be one of those scenes right there when he's given the talk in front of that whole line going back and forth. That is just so good.
Yep. I love the your island. You mean Ireland? Yeah, it's mine. He says, "You're a madman."
Yeah.
I love your style, Steve. That's a great movie. I'm a Gladiator guy. I love it. And I kind of throw those in the same world.
Dude, he's my doppelganger, man.
Yeah, I love
Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
There you go.
Look up pictures of Russell Crowe in the Noah movie.
It's such a weird movie. It's so cool. Gladiator 2 is in the works too, which is pretty cool.
Is it really?
It's interesting. Have you seen the cast?
Yeah, Denzel's in it.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Denzel. Yeah. Who else? There's a couple.
I like Denzel.
Yes, I love Denzel.
Is Wesley Snipes in it?
No. Gosh, who was
it? What movie's Wesley Snipes coming back in?
Blade?
No. They just said it a couple weeks ago.
Isn't he playing Blade in a Marvel movie again?
Well, the new Blade, the Deadpool came out, and he kind of.
Pedro Pascal's in Gladiator 2.
Oh, yeah.
Windows
Of course. He's in everything. Tripaholic, X, cards, and stuff. Welcome to the show. DJ Wise, got to go, man. DJ just moved from Arizona all the way across the country to Ohio. Come back and check out the second part. PaulJPowers.com. The Wendy's guy played football. Yeah.
Well, Dave Thomas did. So
yeah.
Take that as it is. Now, this is a great pick.
I'm going to go with mine. All right. So this might be a little controversial, but it's so 90s for me. And there's not much that I can go back and think of in the 90s that doesn't revolve around me riding in my lowrider truck with my sound system slamming with this bad boy right here in my lap at all times. And so I'm kind of doing a 2-for, if you will, because the 90s music scene in a general consists of mainly two things for me, right? And it has to do with burning CDs, right? It has to do with anything around family values, and of course the New Orleans rap side of things, because that's what I was doing as a kid. And look, I mean, this thing is still full. I don't listen to any of this because this is BC, before Christ, but most of this is, I mean, it's packed. And this is one of three. And CDs in the lap. Yeah, new metal, exactly. But man, my system was slamming. Either it was playing some heavy metal, new metal, grunge, just heavy on the guitars and drums, or my man like this, right? The Notorious B.I.G. See what I'm saying? So the music scene in itself, but the CD case filled to the brim was, and people get mad about how we drive now. I mean, like every kid in America had this in his lap. So let's do it.
I am so glad you said that. That's what I was going to say. We think distracted driving and texting is like, I mean, we didn't text, but
this is why I'm so good at texting and driving, because I literally played with this and drove like this.
Me holding the wheel, we're picking a CD, or you had the visor CD holder, you know, that thing. And then if you turn left too sharp, they all it was
the visors, yeah, those two. Yeah.
I still remember so Dennis, friend of the show, been on here a few times. I worked at a restaurant with him, and we were driving home after a shift one night. I was riding with him, or I don't know, for whatever reason I was, and I had his CD. I don't even remember how it happened, but I had that binder essentially of CDs, of his CDs, and he handed them to me, and I put them on the top of his car, and I forgot to bring them in, and we drove halfway down the road, and they were still on the dang roof of the car, and we drove down.
I will say this. We used to go to the rope swing back in high school, and that was one of the 90s things that was kind of in my head. But I mean, I was trying to avoid things that were there in the 80s as well, really big, and maybe even 2000. I'd go to a rope swing anytime, but for me, it was very nostalgic at that time. But I parked my truck, my lowrider truck, system and all, and I came back, and somebody broke in and stole 2 of these, or maybe even 3 of them. I can't even remember. And I thought my world ended. I wish they would have took my whole truck and left the CDs. Like
2
I was
of the CDs or 2 notebooks?
2 whole books of CDs like this.
Oh no!
And I was devastated. I was like, oh my gosh, you know how many years each one of those CDs? So the ones I have left are me kind of replacing some of them, right? And some of the burned CDs, which is also a 90s thing. But like there's a lot in there, but there's so many I never replaced. Some really good ones from New Orleans rap, and I say really good ones. They were good ones back then, probably not so good now, but they were like New Orleans rap, and they only put them out like for a certain amount of time, and they're really hard to find. I cannot find them anywhere. It's just like, it's devastating. I can find pictures of them, but it's like can't find the CD. Yeah. Like it's crazy.
So Steve, you're a music guy. You had some of these CD binders.
Absolutely, man. I mean, obviously it was more cassettes. I mean, once I got to CDs, I didn't have nearly as many, but I mean, I had cassettes galore, man. I mean, a crazy number of cassettes.
Now,
Right.
Bayou Geek, I'm thinking this is Dustin. This is what started the conversation with my wife last night. This is one of the ones she was like, "Hey, how about that detachable face?" Yeah.
Alpine, put that Alpine on there.
So
Baby.
what I got to know, what kind of lower truck are we talking about?
So I had a Mazda B2200 1989
There
slammed
you
to
go.
the ground with rims in the. I had the back wing, the spoiler on the back
Yeah.
side of the truck, and
Yeah.
then I had at two different times I had two sets of 12-inch Rockford Fosgates, and then on another time I moved from the 12-inch to bazooka tubes, which because they fit in my truck better. And I got more room, and I didn't have to sit up on the wheel like this as you were slamming. But that's such a 90s thing as well.
Yeah.
I had a
convertible top.
I wanted to. I had a grill on the front that was the Phantom grill where you recess the lights behind it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't painted either. So and then I did a lot of work on it myself. That was fun. But I gave it to my nephew, and we wwere just talking a couple weeks ago when I was back home in Louisiana. We were talking, and I said, "Bro, what would it be if we could find like an old?" Because it was my dad's truck. I lowered it, gave it to him. It was his first truck. What if we found an old B2200 and we actually did what we wanted to do back in the 90s? And it wouldn't cost that much for a B2200. It might cost a lot to put a new engine and stuff in it, but you could probably pick them up for nothing.
Thing is, good luck finding one, man.
Exactly. That's the problem. So we went looking and we were having fun, kind of whatever. None were in great shape, but it was it. And we didn't have the extra cab either. So my speakers were like up against the wall. I had dreams of, like, back then as a kid, I had dreams of cutting out the firewall and putting a top on and lacing all of that. But that was fun time. Yeah, that was fun. I feel
like that truck would have fell more into the 80s than the 90s, but
so I didn't do the trucking part because it kind of started in the 80s.
Yeah.
But the music CD case was so nice.
Yeah.
Right. So, I didn't do the trucking part because that kind of started 80s for me.
You were holding that up, and I thought you were fixing to say you're trapper keeper. Yeah.
But I had a detachable face for my Alpine. Well, I had a Pioneer. Bayou Geek said Pioneer. Yep, I had that Pioneer too. I had an Alpine amp, Rockford Fosgate speakers, and a Pioneer. Whatever. I never did the whole thing together. I was riding on the cheap, dude. So, all right, Andy, finish up the first half of the mountain.
Yeah. So this is one that I could imagine being crushed eventually today at some point. It could be in the George for many people. There is such a strong nostalgic love for this. There's almost essentially a cult following of this kind of stuff. It almost feels like nowadays. And if it's almost, it makes me think it's like, if you were there, like there's an elite club of people who experience this. Anyone who was living in the 90s for sure experienced this, and the kids just don't get it anymore. And I wish I could just bottle this feeling and live it again. My TJ Jazzy Jeff is the video rental store. It is either a Blockbuster, a Hollywood Video, a mom and pop little family movie shop. It doesn't matter what place. Obviously, your Blockbusters and your Hollywood Videos may be kind of your 1-2 as far as like the big ones. But I grew up on the West Bank, and there was just a little mom and pop one right around the corner. My wife and I were talking about the other day, and I can't for the life of me remember the name of it, but it was a little video game rental store. But when you would go to these places, man, I'm just thinking like, it almost brings tears, like this nostalgia feeling of like Friday night, mom and dad, we just did school all week, and we get treated by getting to go to Blockbuster. And not only do we can each rent a video game, or we can each rent a movie. And then when you get to that line, hey, pick a candy out too. It's just like, there was not a better Friday evening. I wish I had that feeling again. And it's growing old. Obviously, you're not going to have those things. And then we just don't have these things now. Now it's Netflix. Now it's Disney Plus. Now it's, which is awesome because, on the positive side of that, I used to remember when a movie came out in the theaters, it felt like 4 years until you could get it, right? Like it just was forever. Nowadays, like there's movies that are still in the theaters that you're streaming on some, all that kind of stuff. But gosh, it's the video rental store by far. A funny side note, I've said this. I started kind of recollecting some old video game stuff, some Nintendo 64 stuff, and I happened across one of the cartridges that has a Blockbuster sticker on it, and I was like, man, that's amazing. I love that. I'm not collecting for pristine value and to have like the most mint copy. I'm recollecting this just for my own nostalgia purposes, and I posted it on like one of the N64 collectors pages, which I immediately left those pages because of some of these comments. But people are like, I can't believe you spent that on one that has a Blockbuster sticker. I'm like, if anything, personally, it adds value for me just for nostalgia purposes. I will never rip that thing off. That feeling of going into that store and just cruising forever to find that game to rent, to find that movie, whatever it is that we were doing at that point, that's got to be pure 90s for me. What say you? There it is, dude. I mean, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful?
Hey, this I actually purchased in the Blockbuster time frame when they were getting rid of them, and they were kind of purging. This is actually so 90s. Dave Mirra BMX.
Yeah.
Freestyle.
But God rest his soul.
Totally get the Blockbuster. It almost was Monday Night Raw for me, and I had a feeling, my favorite thing, I had a feeling that it would make the show anyways. It's my number 5. It's my number 5. My first thing off of Benjamin's was definitely the video rental store, Blockbuster, if you will. I worked in a Blockbuster very short time. I said video store earlier because I didn't want to throw Blockbuster out with that being the thing. Because Chris Gordy, who's going to be on our show, he was the manager of Blockbuster, and I was the manager of Dish Network that was inside of it. And that's probably actually where this came from. I love Blockbuster. Our kids will totally miss out on that. Chris Houdat Edwards, my man, he's been on the show several times. He actually brought Elena not long ago, like about 6 months ago or a year ago, to the one out in Oregon. But the video rental is going. I look back and go, what is going to replace that for our kids? And what I mean by that is, when our kids are our age and they go, hey, we used to have this thing called Netflix. You don't know nothing. You know what I mean? But you're not going anywhere. It's just you logged in. Like there's
now the movies are implanted in your brain.
It's not just experience. You walk in and you peruse the aisle. You go to the new arrivals, and then you go to the video game section, and you go through all the genres of whatever. You're looking for that one video. It's gone because there's just a box there. It's not, or whatever. Yeah. Then you go over the counter and you're like, hey, is Lake Placid 2 in the return? I didn't see it up there. It's in the return section, and they're like digging through for you. And then while they're doing that, you're looking at all the box candy and the caramel corn and all those things. And it's just and then you think about the first time, Andy, that you got your own Blockbuster card. I thought I was something. I was like, I got my own Blockbuster account. And then I love this. My wife used to get mad at this. My wife, I would get the movie and then I would forget to return it. And then we'd pay like $135 for a $10 movie. That would just, that's just a part of the experience. Later in the years, I would bring, especially when I worked there, I would go and I got 10 rentals for free. And I would take 10 rentals home a week or whatever it was. I can't remember. And I would literally burn them and copy them and then bring them back before I even watched them. So my collection of movies just went out the roof. I've got a couple books like this of just burned DVDs.
It's the most 90s pirating experience.
The most 90s thing. The most 90s thing. Now, that's kind of towards the end of the 90s, so I didn't use it, but yeah, so good. So good.
I
One
did
of the-
carry
Steve,
it in 2000.
Tell me about the video store, bud.
One of the funnest jobs I ever had. Me and my wife used to run a video store.
Oh my god!
And that job was a blast. I mean, it was just a side hustle for us, but it was so much fun. We even had a custom.
So it was like a mom and pop. You didn't like run a blockbuster. It was your deal.
Yeah, it was a mom and pop, and we had a customer that was an actor in several movies. Man, it was crazy. He used to come in and we'd be like, everybody would come in asking for his movies and stuff, and it was crazy, man. It was a lot of fun though.
That is amazing.
And you can't just say you had a customer that had movies and not say who it is.
Do what?
You can't just throw out that kind of street cred and not say who it is.
Well, I don't remember his name. Actually, he was a bit actor.
Okay.
He played remember the movie? Remember Kevin Costner's movie, A Perfect World?
Yeah.
Where he played the escaped convict.
Mm-hmm.
He was like in that movie. He was the store owner, the convenience store owner, and
I see.
He was the sheriff in Bad Girls, that Western with Drew Barrymore and all them.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He was the sheriff in that. So he was like little, but he had speaking parts. I mean, he actually wasn't, he wasn't just standing there in the scene.
Google's an amazing thing. Sheriff in Bad Girls. Now, that might bring up something I don't want to see.
But you were showing your game and whatever. I just sold that hat just yesterday.
Nice.
The
Dave
Blockbuster
Vera
hat.
and all of the X Games is so 90s as well, but it bled in. You guys can call it, but I thought of it actually. I actually did think about it because back in the 90s, man, what wasn't as X Games? And by the way, he said Wrestle Society X earlier. That is exactly the one for Vampiro. He was the champ in that Wrestle Society X. Anyways, well, we're halfway there. Dude, you pause. You owned a video store? I don't like you very much.
No, we didn't own it. We didn't own it.
The coolest thing we've had actual actors on here. That's maybe even cooler. Yeah. So, yeah, that Bulls run was good. Fat Boys. So, hey, look, now it's time for our commercial break. And we're probably going to have to jump back. We've probably done Retro Rewind before, but since they jumped in and rated us, and hopefully they're still hanging around if possible, these are our guys up here at Culture Box. Roll over my head. We have 6 or so creators that they're Christian creators, Retro Rewind Podcast, and Stunning and Brave, Geek Devotions, the Untold Podcast, all these guys. And we're a part of that with the Cellcast. I think that might be all of them. And we just love being a part. Let Andy share a little commercial with you guys before we jump into a little something we're doing before we get back to the show. Andy, can you roll that beautiful bean footage?
Well, in honor of Francisco and Paul J. Powers being here, check out the Retro Rewind podcast. Every other week, join the Retro Rewind pod as they travel back 15 or more years along the entertainment space-time continuum in their mission to review movies and games, establishing what is still worth your time today. Expect fun banter and trivial insights from Francisco, Paul, and rotating guest hosts who are all out of time. Well, there is the Retro Rewind pod. Check them out. Let them know that the Rushmore Show sent you.
Yeah. So I love those guys. Francisco has become more than just a friend. Been watching him online play video games for a while. I don't get to interact with Paul as much because Francisco usually runs the whole side of things when it's like video games, and Paul usually just kind of joins in for the podcasting side. But I do follow pauljpowers.com. He's an artist. He does so many crazy things. Go follow him. In October, he'll do Inktober, and he'll do like something every day. Go follow both of those guys. They're amazing. And he's writing a cool book. And we've talked about that, about me writing a book, and we've kind of interacted. But we got something else that I want to chat about. Here's the old ones because I don't have any new ones because I don't live in Louisiana and I'm out in Georgia, so I haven't got any new ones yet. But Louisiana RetroCon and St. Tammany Collectors Con is right around the corner. Louisiana RetroCon is coming up in the second week of September. And St. Tammany CollectorCon's out in October this year. But we are about to be announced the MCs. And what that means is we're going to be on the mic kind of chatting with all the vendors this year, hanging out kind of in the booths. And one of the things I know we're not doing is the cosplay contest, but we'll probably do a bunch of interviews with the guys. We'll be hanging around. And not only are we going to do that, we're going to get an opportunity to do our favorite thing, but preach the word as a nerd.
Prepare to make the jump to light speed.
What's up? They're getting closer.
Oh, yeah? Watch this.
Nerd in the Word. Nerd in the Word is just a fun way for us to do geek devotions like our buddies at Geek Devotions and our other friends that are kind of doing this thing. We follow a lot of Christian creators, and it is a very small space, but it is a cool space. They have a nerd church summit coming up that I would love to make to. This one I think is in Vegas this year, or maybe no, I think this one's in Dallas this year, but there's a lot of people kind of getting together and rallying around having church online. And the cool thing is we actually have a space where we can teach and preach, and that is at the conventions. And so if you're ever in the area when these things are going on, come back and check us out. We'll be doing a little preaching. I'm working on my message for Louisiana RetroCon, and Andy, I'm assuming, is going to probably do St. Tammany Collectors Con again. Mine's going to be on wrestling. So it'll be a little wrestling message, which is going to be fun. I'm kind of doing a little twist and turn with a little storyline, but yeah, it's gonna be fun. Let's get back to the show. And we got a little bit more to go for 90s nostalgia.
Hey, I want to mention one more thing real quick.
Yeah.
Our good friends, if anybody in here is a coffee fan, is a fan of coffee, they like drinking coffee, we have an official coffee of the Rushmore Show. And I don't drink their coffee because at this time it's 8:00 p.m. here. And that's just not a wise move to make. But I will say I'm a 2-cup a day at least person of this stuff. My good friend Kate over at The Village Coffee, they just launched their website. So if you go to villagebeans.com, you can order. They'll ship. They have 2 roasts right now. They'll do it in K-cups. You can buy it by the pound. You can do all that kind of stuff. You can buy just the beans. But they have Mexico and Ethiopia. That medium Mexico is – boom, quintessential. It is amazing. Anyway, go check them out. Let them know we sent you if you can. If not, you can subscribe. They do like monthly coffee lessons come to your email. I mean, it's super cool stuff. Go check them out and get yourself some coffee. Order from them because it is the best coffee. And I don't just say because he works with me. He does. He's in the church with me. But, oh, my gosh, this stuff is the best coffee. So Village Coffee, go to villagebeans.com. to place your order today.
That beautiful bean footage.
Yeah, I did tell him we need to get a commercial for him. So he may be working on something.
And look, here's the dream. 1, I need to replace our convention one to finally leave Han Solo. 2, we'd love to get some other anybody that like Retro Rob. I know you're coming on the show. Bayou Geek, you're coming on the show. I'd love to do a commercial for everybody, have them stored so whenever you come back again, we kind of play your stuff too, as well as Flipper Dude, send them to your stuff. But that is a much bigger dream than I have time for right now. If anybody else wants to help out, we'd love that. So
the Star Wars stands the test of time, though, man.
Yeah, yes,
we need
I love it.
We need a brave.
I love it. But it just parody helps. Maybe have 1 or 2 at least and switch back and forth. Anyways, because we're gonna keep doing that. We're gonna keep doing the things at the convention. We're going into Link and 90s. There was some Zelda in 90s. I don't know if you want to roll there, but Link, where are you going?
Get me started
Steve?
about the Zelda.
Yeah.
See, I do like that. That's a good pick.
I do love Link back there. Where are you going for your Link?
My Link, now this one's going to be a little more broader, just like we've been talking about. This one I chose. Unfortunately, this one was caused by some major rule breaking in sports. So my Link is the steroids era in baseball, more specifically the 1998 home run race.
Yes. Talk about it, man. I love that.
Barry Bonds. Listen to me. Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa chasing each other in 1998, and unfortunately, originally I was thinking that the Mitchell report came out in the 90s, but it didn't. It came out in 2007. So but that to me screams 90s, man, is the steroids era in baseball. Unfortunately, it screams 90s, really. But me being a baseball guy, here's the thing. I'm the guy who agrees with Barry Bonds when they first accused him of it. He said, "Look, you still have to hit the curveball." Yeah, I totally agree. You have to hit the curveball. So if Barry Bonds was doing steroids, instead of him hitting a 450-foot home run, he hits a 400-foot home run. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I'm not in the house. Welcome, buddy.
Huh?
Well, so
I'm not justifying the steroids at all. Trust me, I'm not.
Oh no, I want to justify it. I want to jump in here. Yeah. So here's a couple things. Obviously at this time I wasn't saved, and at this time I had no really qualms about drugs and alcohol, because I kind of did some of those things in the 90s. But there was a time in my life, actually there was plenty of times in my life, where I was trying to get to the next level, and I tried to acquire some of this and like be a part of this, because I knew it was a thing. And I'm not advocating for it, but what I am saying is this: at the time, it wasn't legal. A lot of those things weren't tested, and there was a big, huge argument on that side. But all of that away, if and now the contracts now, like Juan Soto's probably about to sign a $500-600 million contract this year. Back then, I remember Big Mac probably signed like $140 million contract. Now that was astronomical. I don't know the exact number. I'm just throwing a ballpark number, maybe even 80 million, whatever. If it was more than 30, cool. Because at that time, it was the biggest thing ever. If you would have told me in 1997 that I could go to the show, but I had to take steroids, you would have been able to film me in the locker room on live TV taking that joker. Because here's the deal. Baseball was dying. And these guys were trying to do whatever, and that race brought it back. Yeah. And when I find out that athletes have done something wrong, like cheated or whatever, I really get upset or brokenhearted, if you will. For this, I was excited. I was like, can all of them do it? Because baseball's so much fun now. And before you jump in, Andy, I know you're coming, because I do want to say this last part. When this thing was going down, when the race was happening, I was actually in boot camp. And that was a part of, in 1998, I went to boot camp in June and July. So the race was in the mid-season of it, right? And I will share this. I have probably about 30 or more newspapers, full newspapers from that time at my hometown, with all of the Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire stuff going, talking about the race. And it is a big deal to me. I love it tremendously. Bill Key's in the house. Bill, we're going to have you on the show too. Man, I don't know when we're going to fit all these video game guys in, but we want Bill in the house. I'm a baseball guy. I appreciate you saying this. This is another Benjamin for me, but I love it to death. It was definitely coming in my Benjamins. I was definitely talking about it.
Super exciting year, 1998, for sure.
Yeah. I love this pick. This does scream 90s. So I absolutely, obviously it happened in the 90s, but it just, again, it gives you that overall, view of 90s baseball, and obviously a controversy that happened. My qualms in it become not the steroid use necessarily. the whole Hall of Fame debunk cred
Exactly.
that comes with it. The fact that we won't consider these guys because we're some elitist, whatever. I mean, if you were able to blood test some of the Babe Ruths and the people back then, you'd probably find some substances in there that would.
Sure.
We get that you can't. I get that we're just speaking in hypotheticals. But here's the thing. Just like you said, you still have to hit it. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're on steroids, if you're, yeah. I think that
there has never been a time in the history of sports, and probably even worse now that gambling is allowed.
Yeah.
That the athletes are not trying to find a way to get an advantage.
Yeah.
Right.
You go all the way back to Ty Cobb, he sharpened his spikes.
It has always been. It has
Sammy
always
Sosa
been.
corked his bat.
Yeah.
I mean, they had the corked bat.
Not even just sports in general has always been what's the edge that we can get, right? And you know, you talk
Lance
about
Armstrong.
SEC, you talk about SEC football back in the day, paying players, and not even just SEC, but these big, and now it's normal. You know, it's actually
allowed,
right? It's allowed. It's promoted to get these edges, and just because we changed the rule, now everything now we celebrate that.
Yeah.
If you want to put the men in the Hall of Fame and put an asterisk, I don't care. They belong in there for what they did for baseball. Think about this. I'm not even a baseball guy. I mean, I enjoy baseball.
And you're definitely not a stats guy.
And I'm not a stats guy at all. But listen, this made me, what was this, 97, 98? This made me, as an 8-9-year-old kid, just love watching this.
Yeah.
Watching SportsCenter. Seeing Steve Scott talk about, all this stuff the day after. This was entertainment. This is the bridge of those two things.
I watched the 30 for 30 on this like a month ago and got choked up just thinking about, because I watched it with my kid and then I explained, kind of what was going down, and that, I didn't like Mark McGwire back in the day.
Me
way
neither.
back, like 80s time.
Yeah, Bash Brothers.
I went to, fun fact, New Orleans, for whatever reason, had a couple of ball games come in the late 80s. One of them was the Giants and the A's. Another one was the Red Sox and the Yankees. And I think the other one was maybe the White Sox and the Cubs. I don't remember what that other one was. But at the game, the A's versus the Giants, right? Will Clark was there, Jose Canseco, Dave Stewart, whatever. Mark McGwire completely dissed all of us. Did not want to sign any autographs. Basically gave us the bird. Told us, whatever. I'm done with all you guys. Jose Canseco climbed up in the stands and sat in the stands and signed for us.
Wow.
Like, he was signing balls out there.
Yeah.
Todd Van Poppel. I got that somewhere. That was a bust, wasn't it? But he was signing. Dave Stewart was signing. I've got some of those autographs somewhere. McGwire, nah. And I hated him for that. Yeah. And then when this happened, I flipped the script. And I was so mad that Jose Canseco wrote that book and tried to, this is what made, you screw. I don't know. I don't like Jose Canseco at all because of this. Because,
well, McGwire didn't even get popped for steroids. He got popped for androstenedione Dion or whatever it's called, which I don't even think was on the list at the time.
The HGH.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah. It wasn't even on the list at the time. I mean, come on.
Which is human growth hormone, which is basically just testosterone.
Yeah. So, that you could get it at GNC.
A's won't have the same stadium for long. They're going to hang out in Vegas here shortly. I'm interested what the A's' new uniforms are going to look like. Are they going black and silver? Are they going to go black and gold? Because that's what it seems like Vegas is. Yeah. So anyways, all right. Well, I'll jump into mine. My next one. So I've done movies and TV, and then I went from that. I pulled in. My brain. Oh, music. So now I'm going to go video games. Listen, 1990s to me is my favorite time in video games. I love the Nintendo back in the 80s. I love the Super Nintendo towards the early part of the 90s. But me, all day, I'm going with my favorite system, or at least the start of my favorite system of all time. I'm going with the regular old PlayStation I played in college. Now, listen, I love the PlayStation. The introduction one of the introductions to the DVD CD type game. And look, you guys mentioned it. It's so funny. I had this already here because I knew I was going to kind of chat about it. But this is Triple Play 98. 98. And one of the favorite things about this, look how beat up that is. This is my actual one. I mean, it is damaged, son. It is bad. But in this is one of the greatest intros I've ever seen in a video game, at least up to that time. And Ken Caminetti, Mr. Steroid himself, died homeless with a needle in his arm, basically. Loved that guy back in the day for the Padres. In the beginning of this, he rolls on his backside and throws from his backside, from the backside of third base, a freaking laser beam about 2 foot off the ground. And that's in the intro to this game. I love PlayStation. PlayStation 2 is my number one. PlayStation and Super Nintendo are both in that early 90s area. I love the video gaming that happened back in the early 90s. This was my absolute life. When I went to college, I wanted to go and play baseball for the Yankees and then either be in a medical field, which kind of how I went that direction. And the other way was to go do video games. And it was because of these cool games. I was sitting in my dorm playing games on my old recliner that my dad gave me over and over and over again. This became me. This is where I became a gamer. And my link. And I kind of wanted to throw video games here. There's no Zelda in the PlayStation 1. But I'm going with just the regular old dusty, like he's saying, PlayStation. Yes.
I gotta ask, did you ever play the 162 game season on baseball?
Did I? Would I? Yes, I did. But here's the thing. Once you play it once or twice, you always fast forward it the rest of the time you get to the World Series. You're not going to do it all the time. But this game, what I love the most about this game, and you kind of mentioned it with the home run chase, was the home run derby.
Yeah.
The home run derby in this game was one of my favorite things ever was the home run derby in this game. And of course, you play with Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, but you pull out some big guns like Frank Thomas, Ken Griffey, A-Rod, I think was in the kind of younger years for that. Yeah, he's there.
From the Hildt says Blockbuster Video. He only gave us a top 3, but Blockbuster Video, comic books, and then the Highlander TV series. He says otherwise.
Dude, thank you, Barry. Oh, I'm sorry, Highlander TV. Jeff Bagwell in this game for the home run derby.
Yeah.
OP. He was so OP.
Hey, I wanted to say, I'm sure Dustin's gone, but appreciate you hopping in, man. Yeah, next week it's gonna be a fun time there.
So next week is our childhood heroes with Dustin. Marissa, welcome.
Yes, welcome. All right, that's a great pick. I love that. PlayStation. There's another system in that time that was competing with me for my favorite. It's no secret, right? But I will tell you, it didn't make my list. So I'm kind of giving you a little. Wildly enough, it didn't make my list. I try to mention some things today that maybe I haven't mentioned as much before. So, but the PlayStation is good. I do remember I had the PlayStation, and the immediate just game that comes to my mind is Lara Croft, right? Is Tomb Raider. That's what I think of. But then also, in such a weird way, I had I think it was Madden 2000. No, Madden. It was the Raven. What year did the Ravens and the Giants make the Super Bowl? Anyway, it was that year. It was a demo that I had for the PS1, and you could play like 1/4 of that game, and I played that like crazy. Which Madden was that? Do you have it?
This
2000.
No, it was before that. It's prior to 2005. So that's no. This was PS1.
Oh,
PS1.
You know what?
What year was the chat?
So I was in. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't with my wife. I was with a different girl at this time, and my wife does not like her. But we watched that Super Bowl together, and I was in the military at that time, so that had to be 2002. 2 or 3.
I think it was 02, if I'm remembering. Madden 02.
Yeah, and we watched
was-
that one.
Game was played on 2001. January 28th, 2001 was the Super Bowl.
2001.
Yeah. So I think it may have been Madden 02. Anyway, so I just remember having.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. My time. So this was the girl before my wife. I started dating my wife in 2001. Yep, that makes sense. Absolutely. So 2001. Yep.
Good pick, though, man. Good pick. Gotta love the polygons in the PlayStation 1. Let polygons be polygons.
I'm a Nintendo guy, man. So I don't know.
Yeah, Andy is too. Andy is too.
Yes,
No, listen.
Let me just say
Nintendo's my
this.
jam. I
Let me
love
say
Nintendo.
Steven is a drummer. Steven is a Nintendo guy. Steven's got 3 daughters. I mean, what is happening here?
So,
I have a beard. I wear
this
glasses.
brings up a good point. It kind of looks like you guys went back in time. Back in time. Do you know that next year, 2025, is the same amount of time to 1995 as Marty was going 1985 to 1955. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Well, the 90s were just 10 years ago, weren't they? Wasn't the
No,
90s? It's
30
always like, always
30
you think of 10.
Years ago. 30.
Yeah.
30 freaking years, dude.
Crazy.
But I remember as a kid, I mean, just kind of, I felt like 1955 was 100 years ago
Yeah.
when I was a kid, like in the 80s. Watching that movie, it's like he's going back to like Civil War days, but it was only 30 years.
Yeah.
Great.
Are they really coming out with another one of those?
I
Or is it fake?
heard a rumor. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff that just got announced. So,
Tom Holland
Let's go.
playing Marty.
man. So, all right, Andy, number 2.
Yes, my next one. Maybe this counts as a crush more. I don't know, because you kind of went super broad, Kirk, with your pick earlier. But I'm gonna hone in a little bit more. I'm going with grunge. I'm just going with grunge because I got the flannel I'm rocking today. There's so much good music in the 90s. Absolutely, I will 100% agree with you. I'm always on that. I love 90s music. I love 90s metal. I love 90s pop. I love 90s country. We did a whole episode of just 90s country. So I love all of those things. But man, to me, you do not get better than this lineup of 90s grunge. Because here's the thing. Grunge is specific to the 90s for me. I mean, maybe was there beginnings of it in the late 80s? Absolutely. You talk about like Mother Love Bone and some of those groups that were really kind of like on the edge of that. Has there been grunge elements in music in the 2000s? Absolutely, yes, that has continued. But grunge lived and died in the 90s. And really, I will say this, probably in just a few years of the 90s, grunge at its core. But I mean, you're talking Nirvana, you're talking Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, STP. I mean, so many, the Melvins, right? So Temple of the Dog, Silverchair, Bush, Collective Soul. You could just continue. Smashing Pumpkins. Like you have Candlebox. All of these groups, Foo Fighters, right, who have continued, which was after the whole Nirvana thing. Local H, Meat Puppets. I mean, just like all of these groups. All this whole Veruca Salt, right? Toadies. I'm just naming them all off, right? The grunge in the 90s was where it was at, because not only is it, and like many music styles, it's more than just the music. It's the scene and everything too. It's the fashion, which we don't always want to tie that to, but it's just inescapable, right? I'm wearing my plaid. It's not that it's cold here. Dude, there it is. Can't Stop the Seether, which Seether is a band in the 2000s that took a lot of their early, at least, stuff from the grunge side of things too. So, yeah, there are so many amazing things in grunge. And what I think of in the 90s when I think of grunge, now, this was locally. We had a station, Kirk, and this one. We had 106.7 The End was our rock End Fest and all of that stuff that happened. I remember riding. If I would ride with my dad in his truck, it was on 106.7. We were listening to the latest, and it was always grunge music that was being played on these things. but still to this day, it's all about the STPs, Nirvana, all of that kind of stuff. You see kids now wearing Nirvana shirts, and I always am just tempted. And I don't want to be the mean old guy. I just want to say, just please do this for me. Name one song. Can you name one? And it's not, you can continue to wear, but I want to know that you know what you're doing there. But yeah, and I see, hey, look, Random Rick Reviews. He's talking about my backdrop here. So I got 2 Kiss. Oh my gosh, it's so hard to do this backwards. 2 Kiss posters. This is 83 from the Elder Tour, which is interesting because we got, you probably can't see it where you're at, but this is not Peter Criss. This is Eric Carr and the drums. And then this one over here I love because that doesn't even have Ace Frehley. It's got Vinnie Vincent. That is which is super fun, right? And then fitting, I've got Jesus on my side right over here too. So it's a fun little backdrop that we got back here. Anyway, grunge. That's my next pick. Yes, Kirk, I love it. So not only is grunge, you know, I would add in elements of what you said in your pick, the CDs, the just there's so many things that this can spawn, but yeah, grunge in the 90s is.
I mean, there's some that, yeah, I'm just looking through this list of, you know, you mentioned Stone Temple Pilots. All of that stuff is in my Blazer right now. This is more of a rap case, but there's some 9 Inch Nails in here. There's some, gosh, a lot of stuff, man. A lot of, like, I don't know why, but I have 3 Tool albums, CDs. Like, I don't know.
Hey, I'm gonna briefly comment on this. There's a little conversation going on here. Barry said, name one Kiss song from the 90s. Random Ricks, which, dude, I'm thank you for joining in here. We got to throw him a wrench too. But he's throwing out some Turn on the Night. I just wanna. There's some great songs there. I mentioned earlier, Carnival of Souls was an album that came out in like '97, which is their grunge album if you look back at it. But they had a really cool song called "Childhood Its End" that Gene Simmons sings on that one. Super fun one. But I also liked Revenge, the Revenge album. They have a really bunch of cool songs. Unholy is one. Spit. Man, there's a lot of really cool ones that are happening there in the 90s. So again, wanted to comment on that.
So 99 Midnight Gamer and Random Rick Reviews. Welcome to the show, man. I just threw you guys a wrench. You guys are in. If you want to hang out with us, we love it. And this is for you. What about Offspring? Does Offspring kind of fit there? Maybe.
Well, they were kind of like punk, ska, also some of that stuff. I would throw them in there. Yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. There's a lot more rap in here.
Punk.
I mean, just looking at this, there's a lot more rap. 3-6 Mafia, Friday, whatever. But all of that stuff is literally in my Blazer right now. And it's funny. Somebody mentioned earlier, and I was going to say this, but I forgot. My Blazer has a Pioneer radio in it, and if it doesn't have those dolphins bouncing, it has something else. So whenever somebody was like, remember the dolphins? My Pioneer radio in there has something. I don't know if it's dolphins, it's some kind of beach scene or whatever. But yeah, I have the power. Yes, you do. Hey, look, welcome. I had a 99 Blazer. It was terrible though. Well, this is a 1978 Blazer that was gifted to me by a friend in the church that was an actual rocket scientist. Her name is Baby, because that's what she told me. She needs some transmission work, but she's awesome. All right, man. So we are to the George. Friends, if you haven't been here before, the George is our number 1 pick of 90s nostalgia. Thank you for being here. If you haven't already, spam the like. It helps our algorithm, of course, but if you're going to hang around with us, man, help us out. We will, and we always pay back. We do, man. So if you sub to us, not sub for sub, because that doesn't work and it really hurts. If you sub us, I'll go find you guys, watch your stuff, see what you got going on, and support you guys as well. So welcome to the show. Andy, it's time for the George. Now,
Jorge,
Steve, tell us your number 1 pick.
Well, my number 1 pick is another one of those kind of bittersweet picks. It's got its bad side and its good side because I've already told you guys I came from the hairband era.
Let's do it.
So my George is grunge.
Yes.
Yes!
Kirk,
Rushmore!
It's
So that's like almost a
bittersweet
three-way
because
I did kind of cheat stealing it, but I knew that you guys were. I didn't say you guys, but I knew that Andy was going to probably roll into that. Awesome. That is 90s to me. It's so grunge, Nirvana, dude. So why is it kind of negative for you though?
It's bittersweet because they are the ones that collapsed the hairband era. I mean, they took it down. But here, this is something I wanted to ask you guys. This is a debate I've always had about this. Everybody thinks of "Smells Like Teen Spirit" as being the song that did it, that killed it. I don't look at it. I don't remember it that way. I remember "Alive" by Pearl Jam in the song that blew up. I don't remember.
So for me,
Like
you just said what did it, and then when the immediate song I went to, and if you go and check out our Instagram, I put "Smells Like Teen Spirit" on there. But the very next thing I thought of was Pearl Jam, the Alive album. That whole thing, that all hands in the air, all that thing, 10, dude, it's so good. Jeremy, that whole album. Now,
I was a Mother Love Bone fan before all this.
Not to get political, but this has absolutely happened. I was in the military at the time, and I went to a Pearl Jam concert around the 9/11 time frame. It was very, very, very close to that time frame. And Eddie Vedder burned on stage a picture of George Bush. And I was mad. I don't care where you lie, but bro, it just was kind of like, man, that's the guy I work for. That's my boss. That's my president. And I was going to war. I had just went to war, or I just came back, or I don't remember. But I had went and did that, and I was mad because he was all against it and anti and talking bad about the military, and he did that in New Orleans, and I was so mad. But I loved Pearl Jam aside from that, and I kind of feel Pearl Jam was, if not one, they're two. They're to me. Stone Temple Pilots is there. What
was weird about it was Pearl Jam being Mother Love Bone. Prior to that, they literally were kind of a glam band. They were a hair metal band prior to being Pearl Jam. Yeah. And then they're the ones.
I know for a fact In the Blazer is Temple of the Dog. And Temple of the Dog was that underground Vedder and Chris Cornell, bro. And I love grunge. It's so much. It's awesome. I've seen so many
Andrew
concerts. Obviously, I never saw Nirvana. That I wasn't like concerting back then, but I have seen Pearl Jam. I mean, I have seen just a lot of these bands, and that's
Andrew Wood was the next big thing.
Yeah,
he would not have died.
Yeah,
he would have been
There's so many what ifs in music, and we've talked about this before. But there's a lot of what ifs in the grunge scene. You know, what if grunge? You know, was still, I mean, obviously there'd be evolution of it and things like that. And maybe we have seen that, but, you know, had Kurt Cobain not passed, obviously he's kind of like the figurehead when we think of the grunge scene, right?
You mean if he didn't get murdered?
Well, there's also that too. Yeah. So
that documentary was
that is pretty crazy.
Dude.
Yeah. It's why Hole will never be in my top anything. So,
her own dad, dude. I mean, come on.
So,
crazy.
I think that the shot that killed grunge, we can make the argument that it's alive, but I just think from a pop culture standpoint, what Nirvana did, even if it was unintentional, because it seemed like Kurt didn't want that. Maybe he did. Maybe that's part of the artistry of it. But that, and again, this wasn't even their first song. But if you can pinpoint that moment, it smells like Teen Spirit. It's Dave Grohl's drum fill to fill that thing. Yeah. It's for all intents and purposes, you know, hair metal's done. I mean, think about like because who was coming up at that time too in the hair metal scene was Guns N' Roses was kind of on that edge of that too. And then they had kind of really grunge kind of steered them a little bit more. Not that they were like the Poison type hair metal, but you get my point. They were kind of in that realm of things. I mean, look at Welcome to the Jungle video, Axl Rose's hair, and you never see it like that again. Like the teased hair, and then he's wearing flannel. And anyway, I love hair metal too. I was a big hair metal guy. Obviously I'm a Kiss fan, right? Which they were 70s and stuff, but they were definitely living that hair metal 80s. But I just love grunge. I love everything it did. As a drummer, as a musician, not that the hair metal bands didn't have musical skills. Absolutely, I'm not painting with a broad brush here, but a lot of it was just shtick, right? A lot of it there was fluff, and to see these things come along where we can simplify the music to an extent, we can simplify the image to an extent, we can simplify the message, all that kind of stuff. And just have these anyway. I love grunge music, so I know we're talking about this belabored this, but
I actually transitioned. Thank goodness. I mean, the hair metal thing went away, and I was able to hook up with other guys in the grunge scene, and I just shifted gears, So it worked out pretty good. But
yeah.
And I will say the Pearl Jam, Mike McCready and Jeff Ament, they are pretty underrated musically.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I mean, those two guys the whole band is really good, but those two guys are really good.
Yeah.
So
fun stuff, man. Yeah. So I'm glad we got a Rushmore there. That is a great George. That is a great number one. This is, for sure. So
yeah, grunge was on my list, and I flipped it a little bit to get the CD case. But great pick.
Yeah.
Now this one is going to be my actual sports pick, if you will.
Oh.
Here's the deal. 90s had some really cool fashion, but nothing was better than this.
Oh my God.
And listen, most people say I ride the bandwagon, and Andy, it's a running joke. I talk about Mahomes, but this is from 1991, and I was rocking this my freshman and sophomore year, or this is 92. So, starter jackets, the whole, you're rocking the, Andy, you were the other side. See, I didn't do the flannel. A lot of kids did. I was the jock, and this is what we rock. This and the Zubaz pants, and, the Z Cavaricis rolled up, and the more preppy things. But I'm going with the starter jacket. Now, here's the cool thing. Retro Rob mentioned the Bulls dynasty. I had that jacket too. But everybody, for some reason, had the Hornets jacket, which I never understood. I had that too. And then I had a Yankees jacket. So I had 4 jackets at one time. This is the only one that I have left. And yeah, I went through some bad years with the Chiefs. They were terrible in the 90s, just as bad in the 10s. But my number one is, in the 90s fashion, it's got to be the amazing starter jackets. Dude, these things were like $300. You could pick them up at your sporting goods store, and it was like, I can't afford that. Do I want a PlayStation 3 or do I want that jacket up there? And everybody got it in the 90s. We rocked it. So 90s nostalgia at its finest.
I had now my dad is from LA, and he had a Rams starter jacket that I used to rock when I would go to like middle school. And now I was in middle school in like the 2000s, so I was wearing, this was an old jacket when I was wearing. This was kind of a throwback there too. So we always had a Rams one there too. Not that I was ever a Rams fan.
And here's another thing that I'll add to you about these starter jackets. This right here, this pocket and this big bagginess started my illegal stealing at every store I ever walked in. Dude, in the 90s, I was just like, yep, that's going in this pocket. You can't tell.
Well,
Dude,
it was a starter jacket. It started your kleptomania.
Yeah, kleptomania. No, that was then. But yeah, we've talked about that on the show. You have to go and check that out, where couple $1,000s of cash from a little league plays.
Oh,
But like the starter jacket, dude. It's way too hot to keep wearing it. I'll put it on when they win the Super Bowl again this year. Take a picture, as it always is. So there it is. I'm going George by far. 90s, most 90s thing that I still own is starter.
Nice. Did you have any starter jackets?
I did never do the starter jacket. I was
He was a hair metal guy. They don't do starter jackets.
Yeah, I was.
That's what's up.
So I looked the part, so I didn't do the starter jackets.
He was doing armbands and mesh pants, leather chaps.
No, not in the 90s. I wasn't. No, in the 90s it was probably more like we were talking about the flannel and you know and back when the cargo shorts first got popular and all that stuff, and
which are coming back again, but I don't know why.
I have a pair of cargos.
A comedian out there, and he's like, he calls out the guy wearing the cargo pants. He's like, what kind of cargo do you actually put in there? It's a great bit. I love it. But
hey, I want to remind anybody who's in the chat real quick. I got 6 people in the giveaway. If you type in #90s rule in the comments, you get entered for a chance to win Lloyd Christmas getting a haircut Funko Pop. Anyway, all you got to do is put it in the comments. We'll ship it to you. So
look what Kevin said. Yeah,
that's an astute.
I went to school with Kevin. He probably saw me wear that jacket a few times.
Hey, they from the reseller side, they sell really well. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. I'll keep that until I'll probably get buried in that thing. Yeah. The fanny pack, man, that's a little 80s-ish, but yeah, it's back though. But now we wear fanny packs across like we're Rambo. So, all right, Andy, you're George.
It is absolutely no surprise what my George is. The number one thing of the 90s. I mean, you could boil it down to a color because
is it a certain color? Yes.
Well, it's not even just the color, but it's what it represents. I'm going the color orange, but I'm going with Nickelodeon.
Nickelodeon.
90s now. Here's the deal. Nickelodeon starts prior to the 90s. Absolutely didn't start in the 90s. There's a whole beginning time of that. But those are the dark ages. We don't talk about those things. Kirk gets to talk about this. I get to talk about the orange years. It is the pinnacle of kids' TV. It's never gotten better. It never will. That is a moment in time when I think of Slime, when I think of wanting to go to Nick's Studios, when I think of Double Dare, when I think of Hey Arnold, Doug, Rugrats, Rocket Power, that's Rocket Power is probably getting a little bit late 90s, early 2000s, but that time, Rocco's Modern Life, all of these shows that kablam. I was all about the 90s when it came to Nickelodeon. Hey Dude, Pete and Pete. Gosh, I mean, you can go on. Salute Your Shorts. What was it? I already said Double Dare, but Figure It Out. Some of those the game shows will be on there. You talk about Global Guts. We just played that video game when I was at your house. The 90s, when it comes to Nickelodeon, I wanted to be that Nickelodeon kid. I wanted to go travel to Orlando to go to Nick's Studios and watch a live taping of a show. All that. Oh my gosh. Are You Afraid of the Dark? Our Real Monsters. I could just continue talking about this forever. I was glued to my TV when it came to Nickelodeon. I talked about it in documentaries. There is a documentary out there called The Orange Years. It literally made me cry. And it's not even because it was sad. It's just because of the nostalgia that it brought back. I have heard recently, I know that all of the allegations and the things that happened with Nick, that was like shows I wasn't watching. Not that it doesn't make it any worse than what it is. Obviously, there's some horrible things that went on with some of the producers and different things like that. I'm not as well educated on that stuff. I have heard some of the things and the grooming, different things that happen. But here's the deal. As an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid, there was no better TV. then we've talked about Fox Kids, and yeah, sure, that's there. That's great. I loved Fox Kids, but I was always back at Nickelodeon. The whole feel of Nickelodeon, because it was more than just TV. It was a lifestyle. I know that I'm romanticizing Nickelodeon too much here. It is the ultimate peak of nostalgia to me when it comes to the 90s. And I'm gonna go with Nickelodeon. When I knew that this was our topic, it was okay. There's Nickelodeon, and who's gonna fight for number 2? There was nobody taking Nickelodeon over. And Kirk, I see you rocking the shades. We got a good friend here. Tell him about it.
So next Thursday
he was on here in the chat a minute ago.
What's that?
He was on the chat a minute ago.
So next Thursday we're on with Bayou Geek Collectibles, and then the next week after that we're going to do a show on Monday with Dan Delatorre, and I got to work out all the kinks with that, but that's probably still going to stay something in the comic book realm. And then that Friday, in replace of this normal show, we'll be on the Real Life Perspective show, and that's Sean. Sean sent me these cool shades because that's what he wears on his show, and we are going to be talking Nickelodeon. And we'll be discussing things of Nickelodeon. He usually does like a top 5. He does he rips cards, and he's also a musician. On his show, he plays at local places, and you can watch him playing his guitar. Really cool guy. Sean's been on the show for the 90s country episode. And yeah, so go check out Real Life. That's REEL, Life Perspective. And tell him we sent you. That 80s room in the house, we're doing a little 90s, but we talk 80s too. And let me take this off before I go blind. Great pick. I knew you were going here, Andy. Well, here's the thing. I knew it had to be spoken about today. Wasn't sure because you tend to try and throw a curveball or two, or try and be like, I've done that enough. Let me do something else.
I couldn't not.
But you couldn't help but stay on the course and nail out the Nickelodeon. That documentary, the Orange Years, is about as tear jerking as I could possibly think of when I think about my childhood.
Yeah,
it's blown away. And yes, I'm an 80s guy, so I'm more Pinwheel. I'm more what is it? The one where they put the hat on the mannequin and he came to life. I did all those, and I did watch the Roccos, and I watched Ren and Stimpy, but like you always say Doug, right? And always say, those kind of shows. I didn't really watch those. I was a little older at that point, but Nickelodeon is, it is my childhood. If we would have done 80s, it probably would have made it.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you weren't watching Nickelodeon during this. Maybe you. I don't know. Who knows? But
I was a little probably too old at that point.
You might have had kids watching Nickelodeon by that time.
Yeah, I think my kids were more Disney.
Okay.
So
now,
I mean,
now, Steve, I know you have a daughter that plays softball, just finished college, and that kind of thing. Do you have how old are your other kids?
I have a golly, you're going to ask me that and make me look really bad. Well,
is she the youngest?
30. She's the youngest. 34 is the oldest.
So yeah, that puts you at about that range.
And
so, that's Andy,
and
right? Andy's 35.
And that's terrible. That makes me feel really old. The middle one is 30.
Nice.
So, and then my oldest is 25. So, and then I've got 25, 24, 15, and 9. So Andy has 9, 5, 4,
10,
6,
Yeah.
10,
7,
6,
1,
7, 8, 9, 10,
Pick a
and then a
number.
baby. She just turned 1.
I got three grandbabies.
I can't wait. I can't wait for that. Anyone else feel that gut punch when Fresh Prince was on Nick at Night? Speaking of Fresh Prince, so 90s. So 90s. Now, Nick at Night. That's a good. I'm talking about Nick at Night next Friday for sure, because I love to watch Car 54. Where Are You, Mr. Ed, My Three Sons, and all those old.
I love
Nick at Night.
Lucy. I love
Oh
Lucy.
yeah.
Yeah.
What's that?
Those were all before my time.
Yeah, but they came on Nick at Night. They were
Yeah.
late.
Yeah.
My dad was always like, "Why are you watching this?" Yeah.
Nick at
I
Night
did watch
now,
Nick
I
at
think, is like the George Lopez show. Now is Nick at Night, which is wild to think that that's nostalgia. But
All right. Well, that's our show for the night, and now it's time to move on to our honorable mentions.
Yes.
So, if you guys are new here, I see a bunch of new friends. Let me explain what happened. We just did our 4, 3, 2, 1, and go back and check those out. Help us out. Go watch the beginnings. But now we're going to jump into the honorable mentions. And what we say here is that Benjamin Franklin was widely considered to be a possible fifth head on the mountain. And so we call our honorable mentions Benjamins. And there ain't nothing more 90s than this. All about the Benjamins, baby. Listen, we are going to bring our top honorable mentions. Now, this is how it works. If you guys out there have ever played fantasy football or done any kind of thing like that, it's a serpentine draft. So it's a snake draft. And Steve's going to start. I'm going to go second. Andy's going to go third. But in the second round, it goes back the other direction where Andy goes first and Steve goes last. Then Steve goes first and Andy goes last. And then Andy goes first. And Steve, you're going to finish the fourth round. So with that being said, you'll have the first pick and the last pick. Here's the catch or the caveat. We cannot mention anything already mentioned, but there is plenty out there for us to chat about. So, Steve, what is the first thing that you think missed the mountain?
Well, I'll start with the lowest one for me, the lowest hanging fruit. Being from Houston, the Rockets' first championship in NBA was the very first championship in my lifetime in Houston. So I got to go with the Rockets winning their first championship.
All right.
I applaud this pick because that definitely isn't the easy pick in the 90s. But Hakeem Olajuwon was just one of the GOATs. So
yeah,
one of the GOATs.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Houston fan anymore. I used to be, but they also cheated too. And that, well, we're not going to cover it. So, but what we will talk about is for my pick. I'm 100% glad it's still there. Glad Andy didn't pick it. Just kidding. I knew he wouldn't pick it. But I'm going with the amazing dynasty that is the New York Yankees. 4 championships in the 90s. 96, 97, no, 96, 98, 99, 2000. And it was only briefly changed in 97 by the Marlins, which we were in the series, and in 2001, where we were in the series. So I'll say this. Just the same reason you said the Rockets. I'm a Yankees fan. I'm a Chiefs fan. I'm an LSU fan. I'm a Pelicans fan. At one time, I was a Hornets fan, which then came over. I never saw a championship in my lifetime until that 1996 year. And to go on a run, which now the Chiefs are going on a run, is just something that is just like, yes, like this is crazy. LSU had a little run in the middle. I will say seeing championships from your teams is just it's beyond belief. It's just weird. Unless you're a Bama fan like Andy and he sees it every other year.
I mean, we're just used to it now.
Well, the Yankees also have a ton of championships. They just didn't do it in my lifetime until 96.
Yeah.
And they haven't done it in a while either. And man, the time is ticking. I'm getting a little upset.
So my nugget on that is I actually played Little League Baseball against Andy Pettit.
Nice.
Well, since we're throwing nuggets out, I played against Peyton Manning and Eli Manning in baseball, not football. I played against Will Clark's little brother, and I
Nice.
played against Chris Duhon in basketball in rec. And
Nice.
he destroyed us all. Chris
Nice.
Duhon.
We'll throw out another nugget. My band's name is on a flyer in Mark Wahlberg's Contraband movie.
That is
There's,
awesome.
there's my claim.
That is Invoke. Is it Invoke?
It's Invoke the Nightmare.
That's
is
funny.
You can't even see it in the shot, but we got an email. We had to like give permission to put our name on a flyer. It was a weird thing.
So
Funny.
Peyton and Eli, they're from New Orleans. Peyton was a fantastic pitcher, and Eli was a pretty good shortstop. And Archie used to sit in the outfield, and he would try and hide from all the fans. But as soon as I just have to throw this out there. As soon as one kid would realize that was Archie, he totally would sign the whole parks.
Wow.
There's kids with gloves all over New Orleans with his signature on it, watching Peyton and Eli. Anyways, Andy, you're up. 2 picks.
Yeah, I mean, it had to be my next one on the list. I said it there. I mean, I can't not go today without talking about it, but it's the N64. You brought the PS1 up. I'm the Nintendo. I know you said, Stevie, too, you're a Nintendo guy. I was an N64 guy. The reason it didn't make my mountain is because I was more playing. I mean, I was definitely playing in the late 90s, but definitely in the 2000s. I kind of almost consider it. I was definitely playing it more than 2. But yeah, so I'm going to go with the N64. And then since I get back-to-back picks, starting off the second round, this is a thing that is more 80s, but I've definitely experienced it in the 90s. It was something that continued. But I'm going to go with the whole mall experience in the 90s for the FYEs, for the food courts, for the Suncoast, for the.
It was kind of on my mountain. The arcade, the caramel corn, the Spencers.
And I understand it's an 80s thing. I totally get that. So if you want to say it doesn't count, why you made the Benjamins. But I'm going to go with the mall thing. We had one here in Slidell. It was the one mall that we had, and it's now just an empty shell of a building, which is super sad.
Yeah. All right. So this is great. I'm glad you left this one for me. Well, I knew you weren't going to take this one. I have a couple that I think you might leave. So I'm going to go with, nowadays it's all about this, but in 1990s it was all about the pager or the beeper with the cool chain hanging on. I'm going with the Motorola beeper. Dude, everybody had to have one in high school, and you weren't cool until you figured out how to type those numbers upside down and do it in code. Yeah, that we were texting before texting even existed in just numbers. That was fun.
Nice. All right, you get back to back here, Steven. 2 more picks.
Well, I don't think we covered this one. How many are we going through on this one?
You're going to get 4 more. Well, you get 3 more now.
You get 3 more.
3 more. Oh, that's a lot.
You get 2 right here, and then you get 1 more later.
I would have to say that I'm going to get specific again, just because that's the way I feel about it.
Yep.
We did mention this earlier, and you're giving a part of it away as a giveaway. My next one is what I consider to be. I already did the funniest TV show of all time. Now I'm doing the funniest movie of all time, and that's Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
The most quotable movie of all time, if you ask me.
You want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
And you know what? You can say any of the lines in it, and everybody will crack up. It doesn't matter.
You're telling me there's a chance.
Now,
This
was like right as the peak of Jim Carrey was starting to come down the hill. Dude, Jim Carrey, 90s Jim Carrey was amazing.
Dude,
We have this one too. We have Lloyd Christmas in the ski outfit.
that's awesome. That's awesome. I've seen the Funko Pop with them in the tuxedos. Those are pretty funny.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. That scene where they're sword fighting with the canes when they're walking into the
Gosh,
oh my goodness. It's so funny.
I love that's a
All
great
right,
movie.
so you get one more. You get one more.
One more. Well, I hate to jump this far ahead, but this was a pretty big one for me. And I don't think okay, we need to recap. What was Kurt's picks in the what was your Rushmore?
WCW,
Yeah.
the Monday Night Wars, the CD case, the starter jacket, and the PlayStation 1.
Okay. Well, then it didn't get picked. So I am going to go with Are You Ready? I'm going with new metal.
Yes. Come on, dude. Yes.
New metal is
Little Limp
Some of my
Bizkit,
favorite
little
music
Korn,
of all time.
Linkin Park.
it is definitely my largest guilty pleasure, for sure.
I can't tell you back then, I can't tell you how many times people told me I looked like Fred Durst because I used to wear the red Astros hat backwards, the brick red.
Yeah, I mean, I have a red Yankees hat, and I have a flag of Fred Durst. I'll tell you this: Limp Bizkit.
Kirk looks like Fred Durst does now, with the white beard.
Limp Bizkit, Disturbed. My man, dude, your guy that you can't stand, Andy, but he just passed away. Crazy Town, man. I mean, like these
Why are you
guys.
putting that on me? Why are you putting that on me?
You don't like him.
90% of America doesn't.
I know. I'm just saying. But like that is so 90s. It is so 90s. What I love about this pick, Steve, is as a high schooler, I was really into like grunge and rock and really into hip hop. And when they slammed them together and did new metal, I was like, what is this? They're rapping with rock music in the background?
Yeah.
This is cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
well,
I love it. Good pick. Good pick.
And,
hey, I'm going to go with one. This one is fun. And this is kind of jump out of the 6 categories for me. I'm gonna go with that annoying dial-up modem sound.
Dang.
Dude, because the internet showed up in full force in the 90s, and it would take care of our phone. You like, get off the internet. I need to make a phone call. Like, it was such a different time in the 90s of kind of navigating the internet and learning all those things, whether it was AOL Instant Messenger or whatever, just the internet in general. But that annoying sound, if I hear that, it brings me right back to high school. The dial-up modem sound.
Dang it. That was my next pick. Okay. That's good. Good sportsmanship. Good gamesmanship there. But I got more. You mentioned your favorite funny movie, Steven. I have to pick it. What I'm gonna want to, at least in my own opinion, my favorite movie of the 90s when in the comedy realm, Wayne's World. Wayne's
World. That's your favorite movie of all time.
It's my favorite.
It's a good one.
It's my Wayne's World 1 and 2. I love both of them. I mean, swing.
Yeah.
A sphincter says what?
Yeah.
So many of these, so many you like for me quotable. I can't even watch this movie with my wife because she walks away because she said, "I want to watch the movie. You don't have to say every line." But you don't understand. I have to.
You have
There's
to.
an urge that if I don't say it, you won't know that I know it, and then I'm not gonna. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is. Wayne's World is definitely my pick there.
I picked the board game up the other day at a garage sale.
Wow, that is nice. Wayne's World had a video game too that was incredibly difficult. I remember that on the Super Nintendo being a absolutely ridiculous one. My last pick is going to be this. Now, I was never a book guy, very much so. Definitely growing up in school, I didn't like reading the books they told us that we had to read. But there's not a more 90s books to me than Goosebumps. and Goosebumps is gonna be my final pick. The first of all, the just the illustration on the cover was hooked me in on it. I would read some of the. Now I didn't read the whole catalog because there's a bunch of them, but I remember reading those. I remember watching the TV series of Goosebumps. I remember that being a reason that I liked like the Are You Afraid of the Darks and things on Nickelodeon, and just kind of having that whole feel there. But Goosebumps is going to be my final Benjamin pick.
Good pick. And I'm glad I held on to this one to the end. It's I kind of skirted around it on purpose because I wanted to use it again later. But so there's more about CDs than just CDs. And you could talk about burning CDs, you could talk about the type of music that you do, but nothing is more 90s than getting this flyer and ordering 10 for 1 penny from Columbia House or BMG Music, and then having to buy 2 later and canceling, and then doing it under your mom, and then doing it under your dad's, and doing it under grandma's, and trying to talk your uncle into letting him use your Columbia House was just like, I don't know. I got so many CDs from there. That when that order showed up with 10 CDs, yes, dude, nothing more 90s.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was 80s and 90s for sure.
Yeah.
Spine Ticks is in the house. What's up,
I
man?
see it. Sith, welcome to the show. And man, we love you, dude. I've reached out to Dan today and sent him a text. I'm gonna hit him back up in a little bit. So appreciate you, man.
All right, so Steven, you get the final pick, the last thing we can talk about 90s tonight. What do you got to pick?
I tried to spread it out, like I said in the Rushmore part of it, because I didn't want to do the same thing over and over again. But there was music was a hugely dominant part of my 90s, period.
Mm-hmm.
And there was 3 genres that dominated that era for me. I've already mentioned 2 of them. So I have to, for my final one, I have to throw out the last one, and that's bubblegum punk. I have to put it out there.
Nice.
The Dookies and the Green Day and Blink 182 and
yes,
Sum 41 and Good Charlotte and all those guys. I mean,
Steven, I am having a hard time believing that you're not future me. I just like there's way
You're having
too
a hard
many
time believing that he's not what?
future me. I mean, there's so many similarities here. I live in pop punk world.
Yeah.
I live in, and I was in, not that I was an emo kid, but I enjoyed emo music and that whole scene and the grunge and everything that we've talked about. I mean, drumming, I mean, literally everything we're talking about. Yeah, there you go.
There it is.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, like Newfound Glory. There's so many of these.
It's so
good...
sad. It's messed up. Look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a CD repair machine, man. Send it to me.
Nice.
Yeah, dude. This album got me through a lot, bro.
Dude, that album is a really, really good album.
And I put, you're a drummer. You're a drummer. I put him on my drummer list.
He's pretty darn good drummer. Yeah. I would definitely say
Super
that.
underrated. He was my 4th.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
I think the one who's underrated in that group is Mike, the bass player.
He drives that band. That band is a bass-driven band.
And his background vocals are unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and Billy is a really good.
Yeah.
That is our show.
Yeah.
Bubblegum Punk. Way to finish it off strong. That 80s room. Welcome to the show. Barry in the house. Thank you. Sith. Random Rick reviews. Going up. DJ Wise. Everybody that is kind of hanging out here and been in and out. Thank you, Kevin. And so many and so forth, all the way up. The list is great. Hey, if you guys could do us the greatest of favors, spend some time watching some of our old stuff. If you're just new around here, I have divided the playlist all up by genres and by whatever you want to do. You can go back and check. Some of our original stuff is a lot shorter than the 2-hour time. was more of a 30 to 40-minute show in the very beginning. But you guys check those things out. Like, subscribe, send it. We are on the cusp of that awesome 1K. And let's see where we're at today. It was 9:50 and it's loading 9:57 before the show. Let's see. But if you could do me a favor, man, go and check that out. We'll be around in the convention soon. If you're going to be there, come and check us out. Go follow all of our friends at Culture Box. And again, next Thursday, Bayou Geek. Next Monday, Dan. And then the next Friday will be on Real Life Perspective Show. And we'll jump on over to sports after that. Yeah, we're hanging at 9:57 still. And man, if you haven't subbed already and you're out there, go hit that sub, share it with your friends. Let's get to that 1K. 43 away. Yep, we'll be there soon. Thank you, Sith.
I started watching a whole bunch of the old ones, man. I started binge watching them.
Yeah, appreciate that, man.
We totally appreciate that. Trying to get that, and I actually had a phone call with Sith a couple days ago. I think the drive to get the 1K is always kind of like you see it, but it's much harder to get to those hours benchmarks just because it's not a full-time job for us yet. So, or probably will ever be. And with that being said, you put so much out at a time, and when in order to hit some of those benchmarks, you got to do the right things with the right thumbnails, with the right names, and hit the algorithm and do all that. And honestly, for us, it's just wanting to have a cool community. Come and hang out with us every Thursday, Friday night. Usually our show's on Friday nights. Hang out with us on Thursday nights if you can. And then we'll have a couple unique ones here or there. And sometimes we'll do the pre-record like we've had. But thank you guys for hanging out. Now, Andy, I think we have a giveaway to do.
Yeah, I got 6 people who entered for this, so I want to do this live. I know many of them may not be in the chat anymore, but if they hashtagged 90s rule, this is your last second. If you can get this in the last 5 seconds here, I can add you into our drawing. But I'm going to go ahead and share try to do this, and we're going to spin the wheel because we're going to do this in the most. I'm not just picking a random person. Okay. Give me just a minute. Oh man, what is this doing now? Here we go.
Well, while he's pulling that up, ladies.
Yeah, go ahead.
Here's some soft sounds from the 90s. No, just kidding.
I got one to throw out there while y'all are doing that. And that is, I cannot believe y'all did not make Brad Delp the #1 rock singer of all time. Yeah. Boston, man, come on, dude.
So, speaking of singers, Sith is also in a band or was in a band. So he probably has some pretty strong comments on that too. But for me, man, it's Chris Cornell and it's Steve Perry. That's just me.
Steve Perry was on
back
my
then.
list.
I still feel the same exact way.
Yeah.
I mentioned it back then. I still feel the same exact way.
Yeah.
There is just something about a male vocalist. There's just something about it. I used to like female vocalists.
Oh yeah, I forgot I put Ann Wilson on there. I forgot about that.
I have trended away from that. There's not very often where a lady comes on my radio and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to listen to this.
Yeah.
And it's not being chauvinistic or whatever. I totally appreciate Ann Wilson. I totally appreciate the Madonnas and the Whitney Houstons of the world and the Underwoods and the country singers and whatever it may be. I totally appreciate that because that made music what it is.
Yeah.
But I would much rather just listen to a male-driven band.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at in my old age.
Hey, it's going to make me pop out for a second. I'm going to be back in 2 seconds. Let me just, because I'm doing this work. Yeah.
Barry often sings to me quietly. That's hilarious.
I think, I forgot to put Ann Wilson on there, though. To me, she's just not human. But Brad Delp is he's crazy. I mean, he died way too young, obviously, but just unbelievable.
Yeah.
He hits notes that
Andy
nobody
is
else
a
can
huge
hit.
fan of Stevie Nicks.
There you go.
Just in time. Look, such a fan, he jumped out of here. That's a complete joke. He does not like Stevie.
He does not like Stevie Nicks, huh?
No.
Well, Stevie,
That's probably on his more. We've done a few of those. More of music would probably be Stevie Nicks and Landslide.
I hate it so much.
You hate Fleetwood Mac or you hate Stevie Nicks?
Stevie Nicks. I don't know why this is
Steve
not
Perry.
allowing me to
Yeah,
do
that
it.
80s groom. Steve Perry. Yep. That's
Yeah,
for me.
Steve Perry.
Hey, Kirk,
Steve
if I give
Perry's
you
gotta be
these
on the
names,
list.
can you try this real quick? Because it's not. I don't know why it's not allowing me to share my screen.
So,
Or do you
All
want
right.
me to just spin it? Or you want to just do it on a different live some other time? I know
here,
we
I'll
got.
just do it on my phone real quick.
Yeah. I don't know why, guys. It's literally right here. I'm looking at the screen.
The StreamYard,
Well, it
StreamYard
won't.
has that thing. Are you using the StreamYard one?
No, there's a StreamYard one.
There's the StreamYard one.
How do I do that?
I don't know. I'll have to show you another time.
No.
So next week, childhood heroes. Childhood heroes. Man, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be a lot of 80s and 90s chat again. But the childhood hero could be someone you know. It could be someone you look up to as a role model, or someone that you know.
Does
you
he have a
relate
time
to,
frame
whatever.
on it again?
What?
Is there a time frame again, or is it anybody?
Yeah, it's just your childhood heroes.
Yeah.
Childhood. So can you send me the people that are in there, Andy?
Yeah. Text it over to you right now.
I like that video where that little kid asked Tom Brady who his hero was, and he chokes up, telling everybody it's his dad.
Mm. Yeah, that is a good one. They seem
All
to play that every year. Let's see, it's coming to you right now. All right, there's your names.
All right. Let me put them in real
Trying to
quick.
get a winner for this, guys. I got 6 of you guys in this.
All right. Hopefully they win. All right. The suspense is killing us.
Excuse me, Flo. What is the soup of the day? What is the soup du jour? It's the soup of the day. That sounds good.
The suspense.
Yeah,
I keep looking back to see who. Yeah. So very blocky kid, fat boy, DJ.
so you can hear it spin on my end, but yeah.
I think everybody trusts you. Just spin it.
I mean, yeah, there you go.
You got the winner.
You know, I do have the winner on my end, with whether it counts or not. Now, I may have added more controversy by spinning mine. Wait, but who won that one?
All right. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's such a great, like a valuable prize that you miss out.
This was given to us for free.
Now look, I'm gonna spin just to. So let me make sure. There's 6, Andy.
Uh-huh.
So I'm gonna spin. This one don't count. This one don't count. So this is just a random spin to restart it all. All right. You ready? And done. Let's do it again. Here we go. Ready, set, and
And if the same person wins, that let me
Keith.
dude, that's hilarious. Guess what? He won on my spin too. So this is for Keith.
so we actually can really trade that for the week.
We avoid shipping costs. We are going to avoid shipping costs. We just have to pay a Kirk's airplane cost.
That's how I met Keith. That's how I met Keith. I won something from his live, and he came to RetroCon here in Pasadena, and we met up, and he gave me my stuff. That's how we met.
What'd you win?
I won just a bunch of random stuff, Hot Wheels and all kinds of stuff. It was like a reseller's type prize. It was what it was. He had a beautiful lunchbox, like a drag
so this is
racing
the hot
lunchbox.
take. This is the hot take. I only listen to Steve Perry Journey. That new guy, I can't remember his name.
Arnada
Asian
Pineda
fella.
or whatever.
Yeah, Asian fella. But I went to the Def Leppard Journey concert about, I don't know, 5 years ago, and maybe a little more than that. It was probably about 6 years ago, and that was an awesome concert. I was blown away on how awesome that guy really was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go look at his videos before he joined up with them, from when he did karaoke in the Philippines or whatever. Dude is really talented, man. Crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy cool. I was like, I don't know, and then I was like, bro, this guy's good. This guy's really good.
He's been in the band longer than Perry was, right?
So Zach, ladies and gentlemen, Zach's on. Zach is going to be on during our sports. Zach has picked greatest rivalries in sports all time. Football rivalries. Yep. So we're doing football rivalries in all levels of football, Andy.
Oh.
Chris, by the way, Chris Gordy is probably going to pick something in college football. That's kind of his deal. He's the Houston news anchor guy. And also, the only other one that we have that's kind of nailed out is Who Dat Pat is picking the GOAT. We're picking the GOATs of the New Orleans Saints, Andy. We're going New Orleans Saints with Who Dat Pat, of course. Yeah, there it is.
I think it's got it. I mean, I won't ruin it. Never mind.
Yeah. So,
Ricky Williams, right? He would probably make Kirks. He could make Kirks. Well, hey, look, we're pushing 2.5 hours, guys. Appreciate you guys coming out. Steven, dude, thank you for hopping on with us today. It's been a pleasure having you on. We hope to have you on again, man, sometime. And
anytime, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gwinnett County High School football. Dude, Gwinnett County is loaded, Zach. They're loaded.
I'm going to go
My son's playing right now for Mill Creek. That's what was a little late getting on here. Auburn, Alabama. Let's not talk about them yet. We'll talk about them later. And, hey, look, Andy, it is time to tell our friends good night.
Well, hey, again, like I said, thanks for hopping on tonight, Steven. Thanks for all the people who joined in the chat. Had a great time just chatting back and forth about the 90s with you guys tonight. But it's time to say goodnight like we always do. This is the Rushmore Show, where it's all about your top 4
and nothing more.